TikTok, time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. I'm your friendly neighborhood philosopher, David Wood, and with me now is an ex-Muslim atheist, Harris Sultan. How you doing, Harris?
I'm very good, David. How you doing?
How's it going? And I've seen you around before. I've seen, your videos popping up and so on, but I also saw recently with all of the stuff that was happening with, Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah and all these guys that your name kept popping up. Your name kept popping up.
Yeah.
They were blasting you too. And so I thought, wait a moment, if they're mad at him, if they're mad at him, maybe we should talk here. And so here we are.
Yeah. If they're mad at me, then I must be one of the good guys. I must be one of the smarter guys. I mean, if people like Ali Dawah can go mad at you, or if they can disagree with you, no matter what that is, you should feel quite satisfied that you're on the good side. Because if Ali Dawah agrees with you, that's when it's these are signs to worry about. No, look, I've been watching what's been going on, and I gotta admit, David, you are an absolute genius. I'm an atheist. You're a Christian, but I gotta give it to you. You are an absolute genius. Every trap that you've laid out for Mohammed, the broomhead hijab, he's walked straight into it.
He does
like
sort
a
of.
raging bull. Like a raging bull, he doesn't know what he's getting into. I mean, I've been looking at the number of patrons, your patrons going up ever since, and I made a tweet as well. I think that got quite a few retweets where I tagged patron support, and I said, these are just games. I know these are just stupid, silly games that Mohammed Hijab wants to engage in, and then your number of your patrons, number of apostate prophets patrons, that's been going up, and that's the very thing that he didn't want. Before that, the whole going after your wives and making all these sexual remarks and everything, and that also backfired because you guys ate the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
I have a different approach on that, but good on you for standing up,
Mm-hmm.
and that backfired as well. There is his own people. His own crowd is like turning on him, just like how they turned on him and Yasir Qadhi after this fiasco of the. I'm just going to tell you, the standard narrative has holes in it.
Yep.
That was,
Some pretty big holes.
Everything's backfiring for them.
Yeah.
It's everything's backfiring, and AP ended up getting something like 1.2 million views, and majority of them are showing dislikes. That shows that he's gained a lot of audience.
Mm-hmm.
Now these people even 20% of these people, they're going to say, okay, what is this guy talking about? What's his problem? We're going to check him out. And they're going to look him up. And they'll be like, yeah, okay, I didn't know that. And, David, I've been focusing more on my Urdu channel for my Pakistani audience. I got 2.5 million views in the month of August.
Wow.
Some gazillion number of hours.
On your Urdu channel?
On my Urdu channel,
Wow.
I got 2.5 million views.
That's a lot.
Last month. Yeah, that is quite a lot. And I think 700,000 came from Pakistan. Majority of them are from India, but again, you've got Muslims in India as well. But most of the people, first of all, people from Pakistan, they're too afraid to engage. They don't hit like, and they don't leave comments. But if I'm getting that many views from Pakistan, my like and dislike, something is not adding up. People are liking the content because I get no exaggeration. I get over 1,000 messages on my Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, and all that, mostly from Pakistan. People are scared to talk about it, but they're watching.
Yeah.
They're consuming this. So when they're going to see someone, a big star like you or Apostate Prophet, and again, I knew that this was always going to be the problem with Pakistani people, that they can't, obviously, English is not the first language, so they're not going to be watching it. But still, it's still simple enough that people are drawn to it. It's one of the silliest, it's one of the craziest jokes that's been told to people, that's been sold to people, and it's just been surviving for so long. Out of sheer ignorance, I think that's or authoritarianism. That's the only thing. I mean, if people are scared. The first thing I tell people when they tell me that, oh, you're just doing it for fame, you're just doing it for money. I'm like, okay, let's see, just pretend pretend to be an ex-Muslim. Just go to your parents and say you've left Islam. See what happens. Let's see, how you would feel, and then you would know, you'd be scared, you wouldn't want to do it. Then what we're doing, it requires incredible amount of courage.
Yeah, and I've noticed that even though they call me, what did they call me? This was from Fareed, but then Mohammed Hijab retweeted it, so I can count that as affirmation. They call me the world's most infamous Islamophobe. It was funny because they said they were blasting Mufti Abu Layth, and they said, "You said you don't have a problem with the world's most infamous Islamophobe," and I was like, "Oh, cool. Who is it? I want to see." And I clicked, and he was talking about me. So I was like, "Okay, so I'm the world's most infamous Islamophobe." But here's what's interesting: the ex-Muslims catch it worse than I do. In other words, they tend to, I do the sort of same thing that the apostate prophet does. We both post videos, criticizing Muhammad and his teachings and so on, but they come at him much more harshly, and I just think it's that ex-Muslim factor that just drives them up a wall. They really, really don't like that. And so it's I think it's interesting that I can be, I can have my history of, making Islamicize me and Muhammad's boom boom room and now eating the Quran, and they'll actually get more upset more quickly at an ex-Muslim. And so nada, I can't anticipate that it's a fun life. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You hear me?
Yeah, this actually works. People initially think that, okay, you're going that far, but any type of criticism, any kind of attention you get over over criticizing any ideology, because if people are emotionally attached to that ideology, they're drawn to it. They want to see that. What the hell? I thought my Islam is perfect. I thought Prophet Muhammad is the greatest example of mankind. What is this guy saying? And then here you are discussing his sex slaves. You're discussing all the terrible things that he did in his life, and people are like, I didn't hear about this. And a part of my show, the way I do it, and that's why my engagement is so high, that I actually take random calls, sort of like an atheist experience. I take random calls from ordinary people, and ordinary people, they're not as trained in debating, but they don't also know as much as someone like me would know about Islam. And I just throw a random fact in front of them, and so many times they get stumped. They're like, "No, that's not." Then I said, "Do you believe in Sahih Bukhari?" Yes, I believe in Sahih Bukhari. And you show it to them, and they're like, "Okay, but I'll get back." So my point is that these people are watching. So whatever we're doing, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the latest study that's been done in Iran. 50%, half the Iranians have left Islam. I think the number is something like 68 or 69% people who do believe in a God. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I saw was it Pew Research that put out a study a while back? And then I know that Armin Navabi was talking about that recently. I didn't see it because I think he was speaking a different language. But I remember seeing people passing around a Pew Research study on the number of people in Iran, and I saw similar numbers even before the rise of ISIS. I saw similar studies about Iraq, that after seeing all the things that had been happening, the younger generation especially was just growing up with nothing but contempt for just religion in general, thinking this is what it does to the world. And so it looks like similar things happening in Iran. And wow, for a religion that we're constantly told is about to take over the world, it's not looking good from on the inside there.
It's not. It's dying. It's dying. It's a diseased structure. This whole structure of Islam is diseased, and it's like it's very ugly on the inside, and then they've just put a lipstick on it, made it try to look really pretty, but it's not pretty at all. And people are waking up to it. It's very, as I always say it, that it's very difficult to sell flying donkeys and splitting moon, all these kind of stories in the 21st century to young kids. I mean, even if these kids go to ordinary schools where they are traditionally sheltered from critical thinking, they still have social media. They're still going to look up David Wood. What is he saying? What is this guy talking about? Yep. The one thing that I wanted to mention, that people like how Mohammed Hijab is like, he pretends to look like a very smart person, but he's a dumb brute. Everything that he's done has actually backfired so far. But I was thinking, and I said that some people were criticizing you as well from ex-Muslim community for eating the Quran, and I was saying that for someone like David Wood, who's the world's infamous Islamophobe, I think I used something like the world's worst Islamophobe. Someone like him who's been doing it for what, 13 years you've been doing this? Mm-hmm. And after 12, 13 years, today, just recently, he ate the Quran. What was stopping him from doing this all these years ago? I mean, he could have done it. Like, we know, everyone knows now that if you want to piss off a group of Muslims, if you have an anti-Muslim immigration policy or something, all you got to do is just go to the biggest square in your city and then burn the Quran. Job's done. Let the Muslims do the rest of the work for us. They will burn the city. They will turn things upside down. And the politicians will be like, oh, shit, what do we do now? That's what's going to happen. We know that, but still, majority of people don't do it.
Yeah.
But for David Wood to do it after 12, 13 years, just imagine how much this broomhead guy, this golden shower hijab, how much he has poisoned the discourse. And I think that's why when you keep doing it, people, I know the Muslim mentality. People are cursing hijab. People are cursing hijab. We like to find reasons to blame people. We like to say, oh, it's happening because of you. And people are thinking that hijab is happening because of you. So hijab is incredibly... Ali is traditionally incredibly stupid, Ali Dawah. Hijab is so arrogant that he doesn't realize all the devastation that he leaves behind.
Yeah, and... along those lines of how easy it is to enrage people like Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah. I mean, I warned them repeatedly. I mean, if you go back to those live streams from a couple weeks ago and we started talking about this, it's like, dude, you do not want to go down this route. You can shower me with abuse all day long. I'm fine. It doesn't affect me. I can enrage you in a couple of seconds. It doesn't take that long. You're extremely sensitive to these kinds of things. So do not go down this route. And I really think that they've just seen over the past couple of decades so much that, I mean, the more terrorist attacks we have, the more everyone praises Islam. Even after grooming gangs, everything else, the more people praise Islam, no matter what people do. And I think it's become ingrained in their minds that these people will back down. If you just keep pushing, they just keep backing down. And so I think Hijab got to a point where he said, you know what? I'm just going to go after everyone. I'm going to start a war with everyone's wives and watch all of these dudes back down. And you just wonder, man, I mean, how do you not realize, laying aside the issue of whether it's right or wrong, right? Even if you thought it was perfectly okay, is this something smart to do, right? I mean, if I'm just thinking, because if I were a Muslim, it would, and I realize that in a lot of places in the UK and the United States and Canada, Muslims are still massively outnumbered, and therefore it's in my best interest and the best interest of my community to get along with everyone else as much as possible. And if people are going to criticize my prophet or criticize my book, well, guess what? My book and my prophet call for your violent subjugation, so I guess I can't, there's nothing I can do about it, really. And you'd think that would be in their minds. Yes, they're going to, people are going to criticize me, but my goal should be to get along with people as much as possible and to say, hey, even though you're going to criticize, as long as we don't get violent, then that's okay. And that would be pretty similar to Muhammad when he was in Mecca. People are making fun of him. People are calling him stupid. People are calling him names and so on. But he's saying, hey, to you be your religion and to me be my religion. He understood that's in the best interest of a community that's completely outnumbered by non-Muslims. So you would expect them to get that, but you got these young guys, these young, the Ali Dawahs and the Mohammed Hijabs, who are just no, I'll just start it up with everyone, and you'll see the power of Islam, and then it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and they can't figure out why is everything going wrong here, and I don't.
Why is this backfiring?
Why are people lashing back when I started attacking all their wives? I don't get it. What?
Yeah, I don't know what goes through the heads. It's I can really imagine, as I said, Ali Dawah comes across as an incredibly stupid person, but Mohammed Hijab, I think Mohammed Hijab could be smart, but his head is stuck so far back up his backside that he just can't. He's a raging bull. He just can't see. He can't think clearly, and then it backfired on him again. Like, how embarrassing it is. You adopt a strategy. I'm going to go after their wives. Let's see how they back down. And then he brings his own religion into disrepute by bringing Abu Bakr's rawaya, that how he swore at someone, so and so. And then he backed down, minced his words, backed down and said, look, Islam doesn't advocate it. My behavior was out of relentlessness. and he ended up getting sacked from, but some people tell me Sapiens and Ira, they're all the same, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? I've never watched them. But anyway, enough talking about these idiots. Yeah,
and as far as as far as Ali Dawah, because we talked about hijab, but yeah, Ali Dawah. The amazing thing here is these guys, both of these guys. And to be clear, everyone, I just want to be clear a million times, not talking about all Muslims here. I've had Muslim friends. I was friend with Nabil and his friends back when he was a Muslim. Totally trusted Nabil. I would have trusted Nabil with my life, even when he was a Muslim. So this isn't, I'm not talking about Muslims in general here, but with these particular kinds of guys, the Ali Dawahs and the Mohammed Hijabs, they constantly lie. They constantly twist things. And so it's a situation where you obviously have no problem lying to us, and yet you're going to tell the truth about you wanting to kill apostates? Of all the things you decide to lay out there. Yep, my plan is to kill you guys. We're going to have you guys executed. Of all the things you decide not to lie about, of all the things you decide to finally tell the truth about, you pick that one. That's amazing. It's like it reminds me of Mufti Abu Layth when he was making fun of Yasser Qadi for the holes in the narrative. And he's cracking up, and he says, for decades, this guy tries to avoid controversy. No, I don't want to talk about the hijab, too controversial. I don't want to talk about that, too controversial. I don't want to talk about music, too controversial. And he says, the first controversy that you want to step in is the preservation of the Quran. The preservation of the Quran. That's how I feel like Ali Dawah is. Like, Ali Dawah, you're going to spend all of these years lying about everything, and the two things you're going to come out on is, it's okay to have sex with a 9-year-old girl, and we're going to kill apostates. Those are the things you really you decide. Nope, I'm going to tell the truth about these things. It's just amazing. You just wonder. I mean, gosh, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, as far as responding to these kinds of guys, there are weirdos that can be associated with any position, and they're people on the fringe. So like in Christianity, we have like the Westboro Baptist Church. These guys go around like protesting funerals, and they have signs saying God hates God hates these groups and stuff like that. And so, but I've never met someone who likes these guys, right? So they're out on the fringe, and we understand, hey, this is the United States. You're actually allowed to say things, but no one agrees with you, so you don't really have influence. And if this were if in the Muslim community this was some weird fringe and they started attacking people's wives, I would pay no attention to it. I would say, okay, these are weirdos. But these are popular, sort of mainstream popular internet guys who apparently represent organizations, Sapiens and so on, and are steadily increasing and blowing up in popularity. And those are the situations you have to worry about. If you have some weird dude saying, I'm going to go after everyone's wives, well, so what? No one's listening to him. But when the popular guys in whatever it is, if it were atheism or Christianity or Islam, when that type of person who has a big following and can influence tons of people says, you know what, here's a new strategy. We're going to start heaping abuse filled with language of rape and torture on women. That's when I would sit there and go, whoa, I've had this kind of in my pocket for years, but I know what Surah 6 verse 108 says, and that if you're heaping abuse on someone, insulting, then if I threaten your religion with insults and abuse in return, you're supposed to back down. And so I've been keeping this in my pocket, but I'm pulling out the pocket now.
Yeah, look, it's funny that you said that you only have Westboro Baptist Church, and we've seen plenty of those examples, and you're right. Their followers probably wouldn't even be more than 1,000 in a country as large as the United States. But on the other hand, let me tell you something. You're seeing this Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah guys because they are English-speaking Western Muslim apologists. There's a real cleric, so-called scholar of Islam, in Pakistan. When my Urdu channel was gaining popularity, he came after me. He couldn't. I just slapped him around and made fun of him, and so the standard arguments against them, wife beating verse and sex slavery and all that. They're like, oh, how can you say this? Because they have presented a totally different narrative to the world. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so he went away. Now guess what he does? That guy's got 250,000 subscribers or something on his Urdu channel, and first thing he does, he finds out the photos of my mother, who's a Muslim, and I've made it clear to everyone, and makes a whole 1-hour stream, goes through a Facebook profile, goes through a photo, clearly dog whistling. He's not swearing at her, but he's clearly dog whistling. This is his mother's name. This is where she lives in Australia and all that. But and he made a whole post about it. And then I knew what would happen after that. And then his crowd was just photoshopping my mother, and they were abusing and cursing her and all that. And I'm like, what have I got my mum into? Like that poor woman. She's probably praying right now because she prays 5 times a day. But that's the character of these people. They know that it's a false narrative. They lie to people. They tell people, oh, atheists, they don't even love their parents. They don't even care about that. But they know that we do. And that's why they come after our loved ones. So at that time, I felt exactly like you. I thought, how am I going to teach him? Because, at that time, it's personal. At that time, you don't care about your rules and morals. And you said, throw everything under the bus. You're coming after my family. If you're in front of me, I don't know what I would do, but it's personal. So I thought, okay, one of my another fellow YouTubers, one of my supporters, he said, okay, Harris, we're going to threaten to, pee on the Quran or desecrate the Quran or something. I said, but then I, you know what? Go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. He's dog whistling people to hunt my family down and, doing all these kind of things. But again, my point is, it's coming from a cleric. From a scholar. Now, Hijab is okay. He acts like a juvenile bully, but this is also coming from cleric. They know that if they openly curse or swear at people's wives and mothers, it might not be a good image, but they dog whistle all the time. There's so many other examples where they dog whistle. They deliberately give out information, and they know the rest of the work will be done by the people. So this is these are the low blow tactics that these people have, and they have no shame. Some of them, these people, obviously. I mean, they're obviously honorable people, like Mufti Abu Layth, and there's this actor I've been speaking with, and there's so many other decent human beings, and which is the reason why, and I have to confess as well, I said that to Robert Spencer as well, that I deliberately stayed away from you and from Robert Spencer, thinking that, oh, these guys are Christians. I'm an atheist. I have a different narrative. But if they can't see problem with Christianity, how can they see problem with Islam? That was my worldview. So I just never paid attention, even though you name people in Pakistan, they keep saying that, oh, David Wood is the king. I became an ex-Muslim because of David Wood.
Smart.
So it happens. It happens all the time. Your name keeps popping up, and then I think the second biggest name is Apostle Prophet when it comes to English-speaking world, people in English-speaking countries. They say David Wood, and it's funny that that you're also just critiquing Islam at the same time. You're not preaching your Christianity. So these people, I'm going to say, you're not turning these Muslims into ex-Muslim Christians. You're turning them into ex-Muslim atheists. It's just bizarre. But well done.
No, I've been noticing that for a long time, that there are basically two directions. I've occasionally seen another direction, but you've got these guys, and they've been raised all their lives to believe in Muhammad and believe in the Quran and believe in God and believe in angels and so on, and then if you just go and wreck their belief, then even if you're going after Muhammad and the Quran, you've got two basic options there. You still might believe in God, and you still believe in Jesus, and you still believe that God sends prophets and so on, but you reject Muhammad and the Quran. And so pretty natural for these people to become Christians. Or at sort of the end of that, you don't trust religion in general. It's like, wait, these guys misled me my entire life, and you just end up with this negative attitude towards any sort of religious claims. It's all, wait a minute, it's all of these religious claims. They're like the same kind of claims that this guy was drilling into me in the in my school and so on, in my madrasa. And so it's there are exceptions. I believe Farhan Qureshi is now Hindu, I think, something along those lines. He went in an Eastern direction, but in general, I would just I haven't counted or anything, but it seems like around half and half of the people that I hear from, like half are becoming either atheists or agnostics, or just not sure, not religious. Or they become Christians, and then occasionally you find someone who becomes something else. But and I mean that seems pretty natural. It seems pretty natural to have one of those reactions. Either, oh, I don't believe in that guy anymore, but I still retain a lot of my former beliefs, versus, man, I'm so disgusted with this whole religion thing. I don't want any part of it. Not of Islam, not of Christianity, not of any of.
Yeah. I reckon the number would not be 50-50, but again, your experience might be different. People who are writing to you would be different. I think overwhelmingly they turn up being atheists, but even the people who reach out to me and they mention your name. But I think why you're different is because you're not like other Islam critics who criticize Islam and then in every sentence replace Muhammad with Jesus. So that might not also, that kind of approach might also only appeal certain percentage of crowd, not overwhelmingly. But when you go all in on Islam and the Quran exclusively, that's when people go, okay, let's see what this guy is saying. And then for like when I first watched your video, I don't know, a long time ago, I didn't even know you were Christian. You were just going, yeah, Mohammed. I was like, okay, I watched this video. And a few months later, I watched it again, some other video, and I'm like, okay. And then when I looked into it, then I found out about Nabil and, all your work with him, and about your history as well. So, and again, but I was obviously reading Dawkins and Sam Harris and all those guys at that time. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's quite natural. Once you go, well, if I've been lied about this, then what makes me think about Jesus is right or not. So and that's how my journey started. I always had these questions about Islam. I was a boy growing up in Pakistan. I moved to Australia when I was 19. I came here to study. I did my degree in IT, and I had these questions which were suppressed. They were never, funny thing is I actually went to a Christian school. All my teachers were Christians. And now as I grew up, when I became an atheist, then I realized that those poor people in their own country, they were always petrified if something, they would teach us. Our Christian teacher was teaching us the religious studies. It's, it's not really the religious. It's just like a textbook history of Islam in subcontinent and all that. But I remember this line. And she was just singing songs about the glory of Islam. But now I think about it, and I go, it must have been killing her. That these people came from Arabia and they conquered India, and they came with all these good things and good teachings, and people found this religion to be so beautiful, and then they converted to Islam. I was like, this must have been hurting her when she was teaching us that. Or maybe, Stockholm Syndrome, maybe at that time, she just thought, yeah, maybe there might be some truth in that. But I had those questions, but nobody had those answers. But there was a culture of suppressing those questions. And I guess which is everywhere. Sometimes kids are encouraged to ask questions. Sometimes they're not, even in Western countries. If you have a very religious family, people, a kid might feel a bit intimidated to ask his father about God and whatnot. But in Pakistan, it's a totally different ball game. And they'd burn cities they'd turn everything upside down if you just say something wrong and is going in the worst direction. So when I came to Australia, I remember there was this Christian apologist. He had written a column in the newspaper, and I was just reading it. And he was critiquing Richard Dawkins, but he was coming from a Christian point of view. And even though I had just watched one documentary of Richard Dawkins, even though I had all these questions, like, oh boy, that's too confronting. I don't think he can talk about God like that. Even then, now I look back, he's one of the politest guys. But because I'm just saying that how religion holds onto your psyche, that even at that time when I watched one of the politest atheists, he's critiquing Christianity and Islam. I think the documentary was called Root of All Evil or something. In America, they have a different name. And I watched it. I was like, no, man, you can't talk about God like that. God is love, blah, blah, blah. I turned it down. And then 6 or 7 months, maybe a year later, I saw this newspaper article. And this journalist was critiquing Richard Dawkins. But I'm reading it from the journalist's point of view. And I'm saying, the other guy, whoever the other guy is, makes more sense. And this is about 2005, 2006. And so internet was in its Google was in full glory. And then when I looked up Google, I found Dawkins, and I consumed, I think, 4 of his books in 5 months or something. And then I found about. So at that time, I realized, okay, I've got the answers. I think I was already stepping away from religion because there was no evidence. But at that time, I could conceptualize my thoughts, and I could eloquently put them in front of people. So that, and again, Mariam Namazi is another one. She, in 2008, just stumbled across a BBC interview. It was a BBC program where she was standing. And I'm like, wow, do these people exist? I thought I was the only one. I was the only person who left Islam. This is in 2007 and 2008, or 2007, I believe. And she's talking, this brave woman standing up, and there's these clerics are sitting there, and she's just hammering Islam away. Again, that was my shock. I was like, ooh, can you talk about? Because now I was trained by people like Dawkins who were just criticizing this Christian God, and they were very sophisticated in their approach. And now I'm looking, Mariam was just giving it to him. And I'm like, wow. And then, that's where the term ex-Muslim came to me. But even then, I didn't do it for 10 years. I didn't start my activism until 2017 when I realized that. So I was an atheist throughout this time. I met a beautiful Australian partner, built a life, carried on with my daytime job, finished my degree in 2007, found a job. Everything was fine. And then 2017, there was this crackdown on these poor atheists in Pakistan. One of the guys who ended up getting caught is one of the nicest guys. I have never met him, but I've heard about him. That his speech was so eloquent, so polite. It's like literally the flowers coming out of his mouth in his criticism of Islam. But it was all very confined within closed circles and some limited Facebook groups. But the government decided to crack down on them. And they arrested them. A few other people got arrested. One of the people I rescued helped him out of Pakistan. And that's when I thought, you know what, this is it. We have to speak up. And one little action by them, a blogger, they shut down a blogger whose reach might not have crossed more than 1,000 people. That action led someone like me to come out, and then a year later, I started the Urdu channel. And as I said, 2.5 million views last month. Month before, I had something like 1.6 million or something. And these views are just going up and up and up. And not only just that, I'm just one guy, but ever since I started my channel in Urdu, I think there are 4 more channels in Urdu that are producing quality content out there, different approach. There's some ex-Muslims who don't like my approach, but then they go to this other guy, Ghalib Kamal, and there's another one called Spartacus. So people like different people. We know that this is human nature, but at the end of the day, what we're doing, we're all going after Islam, and it's the biggest virus in Pakistan.
Yeah, I do get questions like that, like, David, why are you friends with the apostate prophet and Abdullah Samir, and why do you have these atheists on here? It's never crossed my mind that if I disagree with you on one thing, therefore, I have to disagree with you on everything. Like if you, me, and a Muslim were in a room and the question was, does God exist? I would agree with the Muslim. I'd have some differences on that view, but, it would be kind of, we believe in a creator and you don't. If the topic were, is Muhammad a prophet, something like that, then, it'd be you and me, and he's the odd man out. But when it comes to this particular issue, I mean, if there's anything that should unite various groups, it should be, hey, one thing we all agree on. We all agree, whatever else happens, we do not want to be controlled by that over there. We do not want to be controlled by that over there. We see that leads to bad things wherever it goes. And it's I look at it as kind of it's weird because it's on a more foundational issue. I mean, it's more kind of more foundational issue than other things. Whereas, hey, if you and I disagree on this and this and this and this and this and that, well, it's fine to have those disagreements. We're still allowed to talk to them and so on. Whereas if you have something else that then undermines your ability to even have disagreement or undermine your ability to even discuss or voice your disagreements, that's on a different level. On this level right here that we're on, we can have all kinds of disagreements and we're fine, and we can respect each other and so on. When the claim is something that undermines our ability to even do that, then that I can have no respect for that. And and so that's part of why I end up continuing to go after Islam. Yeah, and then go ahead.
I remember the point which I missed on, which I missed earlier on. So I purposefully stayed away from you and Robert Spencer, and when I spoke to him on my channel, I said the same thing. And the reason was, okay, so these guys are Christians, I'm an atheist. When did that become, like competition like that? Fair enough. I mean, as you said, we can disagree on so many things, but then I realized that I am trying so hard, my whole movement, so to speak, as far as I'm concerned, is to reach out to Muslims. And any Muslim cleric, even a third-grade Muslim cleric who knows nothing about anything, I will engage with him in a conversation. Then why would I not engage in a conversation with people like you? I mean, you guys are so nice, and you wouldn't wish anything bad on me, but these guys, people who would even wish death upon me, I'd be like, okay, let's have a chat. So, that's when I realized there was a massive flaw in my own approach. So I thought, okay, I need to speak with, I don't care whether they're Christians or Hindus or whatnot, but as long as we can just have a dialogue, that's the only thing. You and I are not talking. I don't know how many people are watching or whatnot. Right now, I'm in my room. It feels like, okay, I'm just talking to one person. Mm-hmm. But we never know how many people end up watching that and how many lives you end up touching and changing. So it just doesn't matter who it is. I mean, I would speak with anyone, unless, of course, someone who belongs to ISIS or... Actually, you know what? I wouldn't even... Mohammed Hijab is such a bully. This is one reservation I have with you and AP, that why do you guys treat Muhammad? And I know we're going back to him, but I just wanted to say it, that why you guys treat Muhammad Hijab as some sort of an intellectual equal? Because this guy has no interest in that. He's actually a bully. He wants to act big. I'm a big gorilla, and So what he should only be laughed at, mocked fun at. That's the only thing you should be doing with him, or at least that's what I would be. I mean, there's no point in answering to his arguments or giving him counter arguments, because the guy is not interested in that. He wants to appeal to a certain crowd. He wants to appear tough. And when in one of his own little, I saw one of the tweets where he made a video on you. He said, "Oh, when I beat you," and this is another new freaking phenomena that they just, whether you win or lose, just start pumping your chest and say, "I won." So when I beat you, I was only 26 years old. And then I realized, that was only a couple of years ago. So he's not even 30 yet. No wonder he acts like a juvenile brat, because this guy hasn't matured enough. And I don't know, I think you said in one of your videos that when you look back or not, but anyway, but I do think that when he looks back, when he's in his 30s, when he's calmed down a little bit, he would look back and he would be cringing. Because we've all done some things in our youth. We look back and we're like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish nobody knows about this. But he's the difference between us and him is us might be in private, we're in front of some friend, we might have said a silly joke or something or not. He's done it in front of the world. He's going to look back and his own, and I'm sure, when IRA or whatever that organization is, when they made him, put out this tweet that Islam's got nothing to do with it, my conduct was inappropriate, blah, blah, blah. Actually, no, he didn't say my conduct was inappropriate. He just said something along the line that I'd been going at it. It was out of my relentless and whatever. So that tweet, someone must have made him put that tweet out. But imagine those people, what they had to go through, but they would have told him, hey, Hijab, bro, calm down, man. This is not a this is not a good picture of us. It doesn't look good on us. But imagine him having to swallow his pride and like, okay, all right, I'll do it, but just once, but on my terms, You can imagine what would be going through his head, what kind of an arrogant little, arrogant person he is. But it's all gonna look very bad on you, Hijab.
Well,
not even distant future. Just through a few years into the future, you'll be looking back and you'd be pretty embarrassed of yourself.
Well, it's not going to be years down the road. Yeah, I mean, he might look back, years down the road and be embarrassed, but he's going to have to start swallowing his pride pretty soon here, because, I'm going to make him. I know the steps I'm willing to take on this Quran, and I know if he doesn't want to, the other Muslims will make him eventually take those tweets down and apologize. But on the issue of why pay attention to Mohammed Hijab, this goes back, and I've talked about this on live streams before. This is going back to more than a decade ago. One of the problems I saw was that when churches wanted to have an interfaith dialogue or a debate, a Christian-Muslim debate or something like that, they would get the most respectable, nice, gentlemanly Muslim speaker to come in there. And I was just always thinking, hey, I know Muslims who are a lot more aggressive than these guys. And when I look at the Muslim sources, it seems like these guys are more meant for us and not really to reflect the true sort of spirit of Islam. So when I look at someone like a Mohammed Hijab or an Ali Dawah, I know that as an American, as a Westerner, as a Christian, I don't want to interact with the chest thumping guy. You want to marginalize and get rid of him and get the people there where you can have serious, calm discussions. But at the same time, I think that's part of the problem, in that is giving a lot of people a false picture about Islam. Because here's the thing: you go up to a Christian in America who goes to a Christian church, and you start saying, hey, what do you think about when you think about a Muslim? You might have some that say, I think of like Osama bin Laden or something like that. But if they're not talking about something they saw on the news, they're thinking of like, oh, my Muslim neighbor on, who lives on the same street to me, or my Muslim coworker, or the Muslim I go to school with, and they're thinking of these very nice Muslims, and the problem is when I start telling them what Islam teaches, when I start telling them, hey, here's what's in Islam's most trusted sources, here's what the Quran says about what will happen to women if Islam takes over, here's what the Quran says about this, here's what the Quran says about that. They're always thinking, no, what are you talking about? I know all these nice Muslims, they're just not like that. There has to be something wrong with what you're saying, David. There has to be. You have to be twisting this stuff. You have to be completely misrepresenting this stuff. You have to be lying, because I know Muslims and they're just not like that. And so basically, part of the problem is, I believe that a lot of people in the West, think about it. You've got, on the one hand, the terrorists, and then you've got the other Muslims they know, and the other Muslims they know are nice people. And so the conclusion that you would draw there is, well, the terrorists are these lunatics. They're just crazy, right? They're not the real Muslims. These are the real Muslims. And so way back in the day, I just realized we need some people who aren't the terrorists, but who are a better sort of reflection of the true heart and spirit of Islam, to be its vocal representatives in the minds of lots of people. And so when I see, an Ali Dawah or a Mohammed Hijab, as revolting as they are, and as much as we want to say, oh my goodness, please get rid of these guys, please take these guys somewhere else, please Muslims, do something about these guys, as much as we want to recoil from them, I also want to say, no, these guys, and, admitting that Islam allows sex with 9-year-old girls, admitting that, hey, if we get a chance, we're gonna kill you ex-Muslims. These guys admitting this stuff, and then thumping their chest and me strong, me crush you. I'm looking at that going,
you're finished.
Yeah, this is.
Wallah, you're finished.
This is more. This is closer to what I read in the Muslim sources, and so I think. Yeah. We obviously don't want all Muslims to become like that or be a really big mess, but I think I don't think the rising popularity of people like Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah is a bad thing in the long term, because I think now people are going to be thinking, okay, yeah, you have the terrorists and stuff, but then you have, my nice Muslim friends, but why are these guys so popular? Why are these guys who are thumping their chests and screaming and shouting everyone down, why are they so popular if Islam is really this, calm, reflective, contemplative religion of prayer and worship? Why are these guys thumping their chests all the time if that's the case? Mm-hmm.
So David, your worst infamous Islamophobe, is that another tactic of yours? Have you employed Mohammed Hijab to work for you? Is he working in cahoots with you?
Yeah.
So far it looks like it.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: he's working for me, but he doesn't know it. Mohammed Hijab is working for me. Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah are working for me without realizing that they're working. That they're working for me. Now here's the thing. If you look over the past couple of years, right after my debate with Hijab, I posted a couple videos pointing out some things. But after I realized, wait a minute, what am I doing? This is the guy I've kind of been looking for, right? As far as someone who could become very popular and is representing an aspect of Islam that people need to know about, but that is not reflected in the minds of many people. This is the guy. So after that, I left him alone. I just left him alone. It wasn't really until the, hey, I'm going after your wives now, that it's okay, Hijab, I was rooting for you. I was rooting for you to become popular, but now you've crossed the line that the man in me can't allow you to start going and heaping abuse on women. Can't do it. The husband in me can't allow you.
No, by the way, I didn't mean that you shouldn't engage them, like as in ignore them. No, I didn't mean that. I mean, I was saying literally, specifically, I'm saying that people like Hijab, we can't engage them in serious discourse. We can just make fun of them. That's what I'm saying. Just laugh at them, make fun of them, and that's what kind of what you're doing. You're always poking him, and it's like more this bear gets provoked, better it is for you. Like if we're just looking at it as a duel between two sides, you've got him wrapped around your pinky finger. Like, I mean, he just doesn't realize everything so far has actually backfired. And it's like, man, hey, Hijab, can you come after me as well, please? I can.
Hey, you know, it's funny because you mentioned earlier that he that he just falls into every trap, and it's funny because we're sitting here going live, and I know he watches them because he reacts to the stuff, but I will sit there and explain the entire mechanism of the trap. Right? I'll say this years ago. I'm always plotting in my mind. I don't know for some reason when I think, okay, here's a problem I see in the world. If this were to be fixed in the next 20 years, what would need to happen? And in my mind, from right here until then, it's like a bridge forms of different steps that need to happen. Like it just transforms. Like I don't even have to really be thinking about it. It just goes right in my brain. Oh, if you want that, we'll just do this. And so a plan will form in my brain. And for years, I'm thinking things like, oh, here's what we need to do. Oh, we need people like Mohammed Hijab to actually become the representative, so people aren't as resistant when we tell them what Islam teaches and so on. So I start thinking of all these things that need to happen. And, for a decade or so, I would keep these things to myself. But it was back when like Jordan Peterson and that Milo Yiannopoulos guy were going onto college campuses and speaking, and the crowd would shout them down. The crowd would all freak out and shout them down. And they would say, when they're being interviewed ahead of time, they would say, yeah, we're going to go there and I'm going to get up to the microphone and they're not going to let me speak. They're going to start shouting me down. They're going to scream, and then police are going to have to come. They would say all this ahead of time, and I would go, well, they're not going to do that now because you just told everyone what they're going to do, and they can't do it. Because I mean, if you tell me David Wood's going to do something, I'm going to try not to do that because otherwise I make you look like you're right about me. But they would go in there, and then the crowd would do exactly what they said, right down to the letter. And I started realizing it doesn't matter if you tell them what you're going to do. That's what they're going to do because they don't know anything else. They don't understand. They have one methodology, right? Which is to try and shout you down. So that's with, the sort of college campuses and things that were going on over here. But then I was thinking, people like, Mohammed Hijab and Ali Dawah and these guys, the more aggressive types, they only have 2 or 3 things they can do. So, I mean, just notice this recent situation, right? I tell Mohammed Hijab, take down the tweets and we're done. The desecration stop. I won't do anything to your book anymore. But if you keep it up, I'm going to keep escalating. And then he tries literally everything else he could possibly try. Oh, I'll get other Christians to condemn him. Oh, I'll challenge him to a fight. Oh, I'll get him demonetized. And none of this is working. None of it's working. When I told him exactly what would work. And then if you look at all these guys right now, I mean, people are desecrating the Quran. I mean, I would say obviously, if you're a Muslim and you're sitting back and watching this, and you see Armin and AP, starting, desecrate the Quran hashtag and calling for, obviously, if you're a Muslim, you should be saying, whoa, guys, hey, let's calm down. And what can we do? What can we do to stop all of this and to dial things back? You want us to stop being so mean towards ex-Muslims? Okay, we're going to call on our supporters and followers to be nicer to ex-Muslims. But as long as you guys stop with the burning the Quran and these things, you would expect that. But instead, if you go look at their tweet, all they're doing is attacking more. And it's funny because that's all they know how to do. If there's a problem, well, you heap abuse and start attacking and insulting, and you just keep doing that. Well, that didn't work, and now people are coming at your book and your prophet. Well, let me go after them even more and heap more insults. And it's just like, guys, you have one method that you're going with here, and when it's not working, you just keep doing it more. And look at what it's doing. And this is something else. I've been actually saying this for years, and you can go back, find me saying this in videos and live streams. But I said, because of their tendency to launch personal attacks and insults, I've noticed that very early in Islam, when you could give an argument and they would try to discredit you. There's why you shouldn't. It's not, hey, let me refute your argument. It's, here's why you should not listen to this person. This person was not a true Muslim. This person doesn't know Arabic. This person this person that. This person's evil. This person that. Instead of actually dealing with the argument. But I recognize because of that tendency, you can get them into a situation where you're blasting away at their prophet and their book. And because that is the natural reaction for in that community, they will blast you personally. And so if you can get into this cycle where people blast away at their book and their prophet, and they blast you personally in return, well, as long as you can take a lot of abuse, they lose that. They're going to lose because at the end of the day, I'm not essential to Christianity. You're not essential to atheism. We could disappear. That doesn't affect atheism and Christianity. Well, Muhammad and the Quran are pretty essential. So if we're blasting away at what is essential and foundational at your religion, and you're blasting away at all these inconsequential things, it's like if two countries are in a war and one says, "Hey, I'm going to destroy their centers of production. I'm going to destroy this," and the other one's just firing missiles off into deserts and stuff. It's like, what you're going to lose. And so it's recognizing that situation. And hijab it doesn't matter. It's just, hey, what do I want this guy to do? What do I want this guy to do next? Okay, here I could do this one little thing and then he'll do it. Bam! And then he does it, and it's pretty amazing.
David, you know what these clowns are not realizing? The biggest thing out of that, obviously they don't want to seem like, oh, we're backing down because David would put an ultimatum on us. So that's why we're not going to do it. We're going to do everything else, but we're not going to do this. So what happens, David Wood doesn't care. David Wood can do this for, I don't know, next 3 years, if he has to. Yeah. But David Wood does it. And then what happens? So many other Muslims are going to see it. People who are just bystanders, innocent bystanders. They look at it. They're like, yeah, okay, he's done it. And then look at, Norway, another one has done it in Norway. Oh, someone's done it in Sweden. Some ex-Muslim has done it. They're getting desensitized. So Islam also relies on the fact that Muslims are emotionally charged with this ideology. And now what they're not helping is that they're helping us, or probably more so people like you, brave people like you and Armin, disconnect this emotional connection between Quran, Islam, Muhammad, and Muslims. That's another thing that's working. So it's win-win for you. So not only that you can keep doing it for infinite amount of time, as long as you live, and then these guys are just ramping it up, and they're also themselves. And another big why blasphemy or sometimes extreme blasphemy is very useful. I've had plenty of messages from people because Islam's biggest strengths are turning out to be its biggest weaknesses. For example, suppression of freedom of speech, incalculable amount of lies and storytelling that Muhammad was so nice, this woman used to throw rubbish at him. And one day she didn't throw rubbish at him. He went up to find out, why did you not throw rubbish at me? Oh, she's sick. And then started looking after her. And then she turned into a Muslim. Oh, dear Muhammad, what a lovely character. Always old ladies involved. Turns out to be a lie. When I tell them to people, they're like, oh, what? Okay. So Islam's biggest strength is turning out to be its biggest weakness. Preservation of the Quran. Why invent a lie to begin with? Because now, when I was growing up, everyone, even these clerics, hafizes, people who memorize the Quran, they used to say that not even a dot is out of place in the Quran. Mm-hmm. And here we have friggin' holes in the narrative of the Quran. So these lies are turning out to be, are blowing up in the face. Where, for example, Christianity doesn't even have a claim as stupid as that. They're like, okay. So it doesn't matter Christianity might have other weaknesses. That's fine, but and maybe that's why Christianity has been weakening. But Islam was so strong for such a long period of time because of these very few things: emotional connection between Muslims and Islam, preservation of the Quran. It must be from God because what other book can be preserved like this? And then we're like, oh, okay, and because they wanted to preserve the Quran, these verses of cutting off hands and feet and owning slaves and sex slaves, etc., they might have worked 200 years ago. But now they can't change it. They're like, gosh, what do we do now? What do we do? How do we tell these Islam critics that, it's okay, under this context, it's okay to chop off the hands and feet of those who wage war against Islam? Now we're I mean, 100 years ago, you could say, well, if someone's waging war on you, literal war on you, then of course you're not going to give him roses. You're going to cut off their hands and feet. But now we live in such good times that we have Geneva Convention, and we have shown that even in war, you don't torture your enemies or the enemy combatants. You don't torture them. You give them 3 meals. You put them in a house. You do all these things. What kind of a book is this? So these were the strengths of Islam that they're just blowing back in their faces. And people like Mohammed Hijab are acting as catalysts. They are helping us. I mean, holes in the Quran. I mean, people like us, my good friend Abdullah Gondal has been making detailed videos on that for over 2 years now, on my Urdu channel as well. Hundreds of thousands of people have seen it. But the way this one little interview, the standard narrative has holes in it. Mm-hmm. Now the way that blew up, and guess who's at the center of it? Yeah, our golden shower boy.
Yeah, and that's it's you talked about Abdullah just going back a couple of years, but the people who've been doing this, I mean, Jay Smith's been doing this, over 20 years, and I've been talking about this for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. And we just go to Muslim after Muslim after Muslim saying, look at what your sources say. Look right here. Look right there. And it never, I mean, occasionally you'll make an impact with a particular Muslim, but nothing ever becomes popularized. I mean, in other words, every new Muslim you run into, perfect preservation right down to the letter. When you're talking about that, not a change in a dot, I have an endless array of Muslim apologetics books and Muslim Dawah books on my shelves that say this. Not a single dot, and this is not a single dot has changed in the entire history of the Quran in any manuscript, and this is a miracle. And if you believe this, then on the one hand you'd think, well, how does that, is that really a miracle? It doesn't require a miracle for that, but it would be pretty impressive if human beings are copying entire books and not making any mistakes. That would be pretty amazing. But it's all complete nonsense. And yeah, you've pointed it out. And this is one of the original articles I wrote on Answering Islam was called Islam Beheaded: The Information Superhighway and the Death of Mohammedanism. And it was just about how Muslim leaders in Muslim countries have been able to keep their people insulated for centuries from hearing any serious critiques of Islam and from hearing any serious presentation of an alternative to Islam. And now all of a sudden you've got the internet and they're looking things up. And now that stronghold, what was its strength, is, as you pointed out, going to turn into its weakness, because it was a strength it's just like, something like communism or something like that. If you can control the entire flow of information, if you can control everything everyone hears, then you can control what they believe, and you can control all kinds of things. As soon as that breaks down and some information starts getting through that barrier, then now everyone just very quickly stops trusting what they're told. Wait a minute, you told me all my life this, and I just found out that's not true. And something like the preservation of the Quran is a perfect example when you make this incredibly false claim that can be so easily refuted just by putting 2 manuscripts in front of someone's face. When you that's the hill you decide to fight on, this hill of perfect preservation, and someone comes in there and destroys that claim. Well, the person who comes in there and destroys that claim and shows, actually, you've got all these problems in the manuscript history of the Quran, that's false. You haven't just shown the person that particular claim is false. You've shown the person that he or she shouldn't be trusting the people who told them that. In other words, if there's the president of the United States and Secret Service is checking everyone at the door to make sure they don't have any weapons, well, if all of a sudden someone in the middle of the audience pulls out an AK-47, that doesn't just tell you, hey, there's a person with a weapon. That tells you people at the door are doing a horrible job. And in theory, everyone could have a weapon, right? Well, it's kind of like that with this. It's, wait a minute, if the people who are telling me, who are supposed to be guiding me to the truth about my religion, lied to me about that, because I know they know what's in the Muslim sources. The Muslim sources are filled with these, entire chapters coming up missing and so on. If the Muslim sources say all that kinds of stuff, and then they were lying to me, it's not just, hey, now that that belief in perfect preservation is under investigation. It's all of everything those people told me is under investigation. And that's why people are leaving Islam.
Yeah, and look, different things work on different people. For me, for example, I mean, even the morality part wasn't that much of an issue. I know ex-Muslim women are usually they wake up to it by looking into, hang on, why is my statement worth half, and why my husband can beat me, and all these things. So, but as a Muslim boy, especially when you're 17, 16, 18, it doesn't matter, I mean, at least you're at the top. You can have 4 wives and unlimited number of sex slaves if you wanted to, or if you could. So you're not at a disadvantage. So different things approach differently. And this preservation of the Quran issue never really appealed to me because, as you said, I even literally give this challenge to people who call in my show, that what's so special about it? Okay, it's very impressive. If not even a dot has changed in the last 1400 years, that would be impressive. It still doesn't require a miracle, but very impressive, because early on it became a part of your faith that you have to memorize the verses. So because it's a part of your faith, then fair enough, you can preserve it, but still it's likely that someone might have made a mistake in copying it someplace. That's what you would assume. And if that hasn't happened, then very impressive. Well done. But it gets worse when you do see mistakes. Then you're like, oh, okay. So then there's definitely nothing special about your book. So I wasn't even that into it. For me, there were other things like, okay, well, God's throne floating above water before the Big Bang. Earth and heaven being split. These meteorites are actually missiles thrown at the jinns. I mean, this kind of crap is in the Quran, and I know that might not trouble you because you might have other stories or miracles in Christianity, but different things approach differently. But point is, when you have this counterattack on this ideology of Islam from all angles. Bad morality. It's like this Islam, this poor little boy in the middle, and people are shouting at him. Women are saying, "Why did you do this to us?" Scientists are saying, "Hey, how could you have said this?" And then the other people saying, "How could you have done this?" And Islam has got no comebacks. And this is the reason, as we spoke about earlier, I think it was some Swedish or maybe Norwegian, actually no, Dutch university that did the study in Iran. A year earlier, it was done by BBC in Arab countries. I think Tunisia's number went from 20% atheists and agnostics to I think 35% or something. And the second country was Libya, and I think that was somewhere sitting at 25, 26%. Hey, wow. Something is happening.
When I was back in the early 2000s, I thought Libya was like at 99% or something like that.
Yeah, that's because of Gaddafi was, these guys, see, that's another thing. These guys don't allow actual polling. People are saying that in Saudi Arabia, atheism has gone through the roof. Saudi Arabia is the most authoritarian country when it comes to religion and probably politics as well. It's the most authoritarian. You can't even ask these questions there. Countries like Pakistan and Malaysia are a little bit different. Yes, they are very conservative and very... but the state itself is not as aggressive as Iran or Saudi Arabia. That's why Islam is crumbling even faster in those authoritarian countries. But Pakistan has 220 million people, 200 million are Muslims, and now they're just becoming more and more radicalized. Now they've just started passing laws against Shias, which make up about 15% of the population. What's going to happen? Where are they going to go? They're just going to keep fighting with each other, and people are going to, because human nature is we demand, our existence demands peace. We don't want to be in a conflict all the time. And that's why when enough blood is going to be shed, what they're doing, they're literally killing each other. Now a Muslim is killing another Muslim over blasphemy. Now, to them, see, in other countries, Arab countries, they don't take blasphemy as seriously as they take apostasy seriously. Mm-hmm. In Pakistan, it's reversed. They don't take apostasy as seriously. They say, well, if you're ex-Muslim, go, we don't care, but don't you dare say anything about our prophet. That's where they go. So over there, you literally get killed. So they have a totally different attitude. But what happens? Nothing stays the same. Nothing. It always evolves. So some genius in Pakistan in the 80s thought that, okay, we're going to put a death penalty over blasphemy. They know that the law is pathetic. That's why over 1,300 cases, not one person has ever been hanged in Pakistan over blasphemy. Never, because they know that they can't hang people over this. They know it. In return, they've hanged plenty of people, plenty of murderers, but they haven't hanged anyone over blasphemy. So the state knows, government knows this is pathetic. But what happens? Because you made this official policy, people get charged up. Now, you say, oh, why did you say, so there are different levels of referring to someone in Urdu. For you say tu. Tu, you can say for a younger kid or someone with disrespect, you can say tu. But for someone with respect, you say ap, meaning, and that's for Prophet. So if you use someone like tu, the word like tu, that you would use for a kid, for Prophet Muhammad, therefore that's blasphemy. We can put you in prison. And if you haven't hanged him, then what's the state doing? And then people become vigilantes and they start taking action into their own hands. Last week, I reported on this. A person who's a memorizer of the Quran, he knows the Quran off his heart, he got killed by his fellow security guard over blasphemy. Now, this guy who got killed would have loved the Prophet like anyone, like as any normal Muslim would. But he also got accused of blasphemy, and he got murdered by his own friend. And that's the frequency has increased. Oh, actually, here's an interesting stat. In last month alone, ever since that U.S. citizen was killed in Peshawar court, I don't know if you heard about him. He was killed in a Peshawar court. I reported on quite a few times. So last year, I think at the end of July, there was a U.S. citizen, Pakistani U.S. citizen. He was lured back to Pakistan and to have some sort of conversation, but it was a trap. And as soon as he got there, they arrested him. He's been going to court since 2018, but nothing was coming off it, obviously because U.S. had his foot up Pakistan's backside, that they had to release him. They somehow, they get themselves in this mess because the law exists, and then they cave into the international pressure. So nothing was happening. He was probably going to get released. So this vigilante goes in, some 16, 17-year-old kid, poisoned by... Right? Yeah, killed him in court. That happened on 30th of July. But since then, in the whole month of August, we have 32 reported cases of blasphemy, which is the biggest number in the history of entire Pakistan in 1 month. You would get one a month, maybe one every 2 months, but they are getting so charged up. And I think this is just that, just before we start seeing even bigger number of apostasies coming out of Muslim countries, just beware that there's gonna be some bloodshed. And my friend predicts that, especially in some Pakistanis. I mean, I live in Australia. I take my security quite seriously. But there's some ex-Muslim YouTubers who are not in Pakistan, but they are not in very well-off countries either. So he's made a prediction that one of the popular ex-Muslim is gonna get killed as well, because that's likely to happen. This beast is not gonna die without showing his teeth. And as I said, we're seeing in Pakistan, we're seeing this increase in frequency of blasphemy, murders, vigilante actions. But again, I think we will, within our lifetimes, if we don't get murdered, within our lifetime, we will see a very sharp increase. And we're already seeing it. Half the people in Iran, come on, Iran, go tell Obama or George W. Bush, who called it axis of evil. Half the Iranians are believe in Islam. What more could be better music to your ears?
Yeah, and I think there's a parallel here in that lots of the people I've known, including Nabil, who've left Islam, they seem to go through this period where, as their doubts increase, they become more devout. And so, I hear from Christians, hey, I'm witnessing to my Muslim friend, and the more I talk to him, the more devout of a Muslim he's becoming. I say, that probably means you're getting to him, and he's trying to compensate because he's feeling bad that he's having these doubts, and so he's trying to compensate by being a far more faithful Muslim. But so I've seen that over and over and over again, because what happens is, they have a lot of confidence in Islam, and then you spend months or years giving them information, and you see they're learning all of this information that they've never heard before, and all of a sudden they start dressing more conservatively and going to the mosque more, and you're like, gosh, after everything I've shared with you, that's what you're doing. And it's kind of compensating. It's obvious that they're compensating, because after that, all of a sudden, hey, I just left Islam. And so what I think you have a similar parallel in, the Muslim community, in larger Muslim communities, when as they're encountering all of this new information, and as they're realizing, hey, we've got all these problems, and as they're, able to see opposing points of view, and as they're able to have their beliefs criticized and so on, that their confidence is being shaken, and people are leaving and so on. Their confidence is being shaken, and so they have this urgency that we must become much more devout right now. Just as an individual has that reaction, it's we're getting shaky here. We need to crack down and become more devout. And I really think that's what you're seeing with the rise of people like Mohammed, Hijab, and so on. Is their confidence is being shaken. I mean, just look. I mean, there's no coincidence that you had the holes in the narrative. People are going to Yasser Qadi. They're going to Mohammed Hijab. You're destroying my faith in the Quran. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, I will crush all of you. I'll destroy all of you. I challenge all of you ex-Muslims. I will shout all of you down. And it's, it's so I'm looking at that. And I'm going, as horrible as that is, I get it. I've seen this before. I saw it in individuals. Now I'm just seeing it in a community.
As I said, it is a win-win for us, because look at Mohammed Hijab himself. We keep going back to this broomhead guy, but him speaking with apostate prophet, him saying that, oh no, hang on, wait a minute. I've been thinking a lot. I'm paraphrasing him, and I'm actually speaking out his thoughts aloud as well. That I've been thinking about this. You clever ex-Muslims have been getting me on this apostasy issue, and then you show our ugly face of our religion to the world. Here's nuance on this. In perfect Islamic society, we used to say, in perfect Islamic society, they should be killed. But now they should have treaties with other Western countries, and they should be given an option to exile. Mm-hmm. That, by his standard, that's a huge leap forward. But by our standard, it's still a fascist ideology. Mm-hmm. That's exactly, guess who said that? Hitler said that about Jews.
Wow.
Should we exile them, or should we kill them? So, but having said that, my point is, hijab is like, they're still trying to change so much. And guess what? The demon, the Frankensteins that they've created themselves. Somebody actually tweeted it. There were hundreds upon hundreds of comments where people were bashing him for saying, oh, well done, you beat apostate prophet. You got to say that. Whether you lose or win, you just got to say, yeah, we won. So anyway, so he said, well done, you beat apostate prophet, but, bro, this is not right about apostasy. You got to kill him.
Yeah.
So someone as radical as Mohammed Hijab is now saying, oh, okay, we got to give them an option of exile as well. And then we are forcing them to change their narrative, change their stance. Ali Dawah one where he said, if my daughter is whatever. Again, Ali Dawah is so stupid. This is a trap that people are setting for him, and he just keeps walking into it. And how could he not walk into it? Because if he doesn't say it out loud, then he's publicly saying that, well, maybe Muhammad was wrong in marrying a 9-year-old girl, or some other kind of, or maybe outrightly deny that. But then we know once people start denying hadiths, then they dig a bigger hole for themselves. And which one do you believe in then? Why should we believe in your good hadiths? These guys just keep walking in the traps, and we just have to, and we don't even have to be. We don't even have to have Einsteinian intellect to work that out. You just ask Muhammad For example, there was this guy, he was a PhD student. I had this debate with him in 2018 in University of Sydney. And a debate with him, PhD student in philosophy. I had a debate with him. Fair enough. He gave all the fine-tuning argument. I gave the traditional atheist argument. He gave the traditional God arguments, whatever. But I was like, yeah, people are not finding interest in that. I just asked him, what is the punishment for apostasy? That was it. There was white audience sitting in front of him who were being mesmerized by his, the fine-tuning argument, the ontological argument, this guy's got... But now, what is the punishment for apostasy? And he's like, I think you can watch the video. It was actually picked up by the local newspaper, actually by Daily Mail, not the local newspaper. And the clip went on for 5 minutes. He could not give a straight answer, but just at the end, he's like, yeah, you should be killed. Wow. So these are the traps. It's so simple, so easy for us to lay it out for them.
Yeah, what it looks like in my mind is it's a similar situation. I've mentioned this in the past, but at the time of Philip of Macedon, the Greeks,
Alexander's father.
Yeah, the Greeks were pretty scared of the Persians. They understood that when the Persians come over to conquer us, if we all unite, we can take our stand and make them go back to where they came from. But they still viewed the Persian Empire as this, massive, powerful empire. And then so during the time of Philip of Macedon, these travelers kept coming back going, these Persians that you're so worried about, their forts are falling apart, their soldiers are lying around drunk. I don't think they're as strong as you really think they are. And if you have a pretty well-trained army, well-disciplined army, you could just go wreak havoc through all these guys. And Alexander the Great said, "I'll do it," and just they put
destroyed
up,
him,
like it was nothing. And that's kind of how Islam looks to me. It's specifically because they've built people's confidence in their religion upon these pillars of lies, right? If they had been honest about the holes in the narrative all the time and just said, hey guys, it's not a perfect process. Anytime you have human beings involved, it's not going to be a perfect process. Yes, it was perfect when Allah revealed it, but then it's in the hands of the human beings, and human beings make mistakes. And so of course you're going to get differences in the manuscripts, but we still believe we have an accurate reflection of what was revealed to Muhammad. And so we believe in that. If they'd said that, then that would be one thing. But because they have to make up all these claims, right? The Quran is a scientific masterpiece that's filled with these insights that are only being verified today. That sounds great as long as no one's going to go look it up. But you have pillar after pillar. Muhammad is the greatest man who ever lived. His character was perfect. The Quran is filled with these scientific insights. The Quran has been miraculously preserved right down to the letter. And every Muslim you go up to, he believes in Islam because of these things. And it's just looking at this going, these things are so false and they're so easy to refute that if you have a small, well-trained, well-studied group who knows how to just wreak havoc on these basic beliefs, you can go through there just like Alexander went through the Persian Empire and just wreak havoc on it.
Look, you hit the nail on his head. I mean, as I said, the biggest strengths of Islam are turning out to be the biggest weaknesses, but only in the 21st century. As I said, if minus the social media, as you said, if you're not going to look it up, it's perfect down to the letter, no one's going to look it up. Or there's scientific miracles in the Quran. If you don't know science, fine. Then you take the claim. You're like, okay, that's fine. It must be from God. But now in the 21st century, it's very difficult to maintain that lie because someone can just look up what is the Big Bang Theory. The Quran is saying that earth and heavens were together, but there was no earth at the time of Big Bang. What is it talking about? And God's throne floating above water with that. So, so people can look it up, but it worked. It worked back in the day, in the pre-internet era, when people, only there's very few smart people would go to a library and they would find one book that is actually critical of Islam. But guess what? That book has mysteriously disappeared from the library as well. So that would have worked up until, I would say, even up until 90s as well. It would have worked really well. People like Salman Rushdie and so many other great ex-Muslims, Ibn Waraq, etc., who've written about it. But their books were made, they were so demonize these guys. That when I grew up hating Salman Rushdie, I had no idea what's in that book. It was like just, this guy's he's gonna burn in hell. Guess what? He's freaking still alive, and you can't do anything to him. And then people are not gonna read the book, and they're just gonna go on with their merry life, and they're gonna say like everything's fine. But now, how are they gonna look away when you just watching a Turkish TV drama serial where you're fantasizing about your glorious Muslim past, and then a video comes up of David Wood eating a Quran like this? What are you gonna do? You're bound to click on it, and then you might feel angry, as you're right, and then people do react. This is a survival mechanism. They go like, "Oh, I have to hold on to this faith." You're right. I mean, these people. I lost count of people who used to, because I very seldom delete messages from people unless they actually tell me that, please, Harris, delete it in case your account gets compromised. I'll get compromised in Pakistan. So I seldom delete their messages. When someone sends me a message a year later, and they say, Harris, like I've changed my mind, like I thought I was preserving my faith, but I can't. I scroll up and I look at their messages where they say, a year ago, they were abusing me, they were cursing me, they were saying, oh, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. And a year later, they've changed their mind. Mm-hmm. Why? It's only because of social media. If it was just my book, if it was just my book, reading a book is difficult. Finding it is even harder. So it's easier not to look at it. It's easy to hold on to your faith. But now these guys, we're in their faces, and I think this is what frustrates people like Mohammed Hijab, and they act out. And I think it's frustrating the civilized scholars as well, like Yasir Qadhi and Shabir Ali and these guys. I mean, Yasir Qadhi, I noticed the other day, he just blocked me on Twitter. I've never been disrespectful to him. I've always been respectful whenever I've addressed him. But
you're finished.
But these guys, you're finished. Wallah, you're finished. And, this is how crazy they are. That's how far they go into their obsession, this OCD. Muhammad used to do things 3 times, right? He would wipe his bum 3 times. He would knock on the door 3 times. He would eat 3 dates, and everything is 3, right?
He was massively OCD.
Yeah, massively OCD. But look at Mohammed Hijab. These guys who emulate them, he also act like that. They even copy his mental problems. Like Mohammed Hijab is saying it 3 times. Wallah, you're finished. You're finished. You're finished. It's just crazy. These guys are just. I think we're living in very interesting times. I think, but we got to remember one thing. I just want to say that we have so many ex-Muslims in Pakistan that if I just focus solely on reading the messages that I get from people, they don't leave it, they don't subscribe to my channel, they don't like my videos and whatnot, and I literally get thousands of messages in my Messenger or my Instagram where people say we can't say this, we can't like this, we can't, for obvious reasons, but they are absolutely living in a suffocating environment. And I know that you can shut down few people, but you can't shut down everyone all the time. So it's just about gaining number, and I'm very hopeful. Very soon, David, within 10 years, there's gonna be 30-40% atheists or ex-Muslims living in every major Muslim country. Iran is like, I mean, don't be surprised if you hear next year that there's a secular revolution in Iran. Don't be surprised if that happens. I mean, if 50% of the people, the study that they did, and sample size was 50,000. That's very big by any standard, and it was very diverse group of. It's a proper university study. Not only just that. The lot of people that are actually becoming anti-theist. Of course, when you're taking away their freedoms, when you're forcing, and I said, all these people, all these Western feminists, when they say, oh, hijab is a symbol of freedom of women, and it's a symbol of feminism, etc.
It sure is.
Imagine those 50% ex-Muslims living in Iran, those women. Imagine those, they have to wear a hijab because it's compulsory hijab in Iran. That's why we keep seeing these videos coming out where an ugly mullah would go up to a girl and say, "Oh, I can see a strand of your hair," and then they would start this whole fight in the middle of a street, and then everyone would side with this cleric. And imagine being that woman for one moment, and if 50% have left Islam in Iran, 25% of them would be women. That number is in millions. Then millions of women are wearing hijab when they don't believe in it. So we have to. I mean, that's one thing that I just keep thinking about those people, and those are the people that keep giving us courage for keep doing the work we're doing. And I can only thank you enough, because whatever voice that we get, that was my problem for a bit of time. That okay, well, we're ex-Muslims, we can take, and we do get away with a little bit more. Than someone who is coming from a white background, Western background, and non-Muslim background. It's easier to stick the label of Islamophobe or racist with you, for instance, as it is with me. I do get away with a lot more, but that was the flaw in my thinking as well, and some ex-Muslims thinking as well, that okay, we can criticize Islam, it's our mass, but how, you white dude, why are you doing that? You must be racist, you must be pushing your Christian agenda, you must be pushing your non-white immigration ban agenda. That kind of it. And look, we can't be totally blamed, because there are some people like that as well. But it's very important to differentiate between those people. That who are they? Is it Richard Spencer is a clear Nazi, but Robert Spencer is not. And this is why I have a problem when you call these names loaded terms to people like Robert Spencer. Then what's the difference between Robert and Richard? And we know Richard Spencer is a Nazi. Robert Spencer is not. So, but you've equated them both the same, so it loses its meaning. So we have to be clear with the real, genuine critics of Islam. You're a critic of Islam. You're not a bigot to me. I haven't found anything that would suggest that. But then what reason do I have not to talk to you? Because I'm a critic of Islam myself. We're both the same. So anyway, we're doing great work, and I'm really, really glad that I got an opportunity to come to your show.
Yeah, that's something that's always, I mean, it's kind of diabolical the way people get lumped together. Like some people may be surprised to hear this, I've never criticized Muslim immigration. I've criticized being stupid about it. If you're saying, hey, we're going to bring in a bunch of Muslim refugees from a country, and you look at the people and they're all like 18 to 24-year-old men, I would say you're being stupid, because those are the people who are best able to survive in that war-torn country. Where are the women? Where are the old people? Where are the children? Those are the people who are least able to survive in those places. So why are you being stupid about this? Apart from that, I've never gone out saying, hey, we need to crack down on immigration and so on. In fact, Nabil and I, at certain times, have been in a position where we're actually defending it in like a conference, where the topic comes up, hey, should we ban immigration? And there would be people saying, should we ban immigration from Muslim countries and so on? There would be people saying, yes, of course you should. Why do you want to bring, terrorists in? And it would be, me and Nabil sitting there, and Nabil be calling, gosh, my parents weren't terrorists. Yeah, you might want to be careful. About who you're bringing in and so on. And so we'd be on that side. But yeah, I've always distinguished between, here's a person, right? So I'm a Christian, so I believe people are created in the image of God. But, if you just believe that living people have basic rights and so on, they're in a different category from an ideology which has no feelings and has no rights, which even an average ideology is still different from an extremely dangerous ideology that calls for your violent subjugation. And so there's just nothing. I don't get this, hey, I'm going after the ideology because I don't just believe, oh, this ideology is a danger to me. It's bad for the Muslims themselves. It's affecting your thinking about the world. And it's not just, hey, this is bad for the world. It's bad for you Muslims. I mean, whenever we bring up Islamic terrorism, one of the first responses is, oh, but Muslims are the biggest victims of Islamic terrorism. Yeah, we know Sunnis are killing Shias and Shias are killing Sunnis. We know that. But that's kind of the point. You're not helping your case here, right? So let me get this straight. Belief in this guy who inspired his even his closest companions that when you have a disagreement, you start killing each other. You can see the first generation of Muslims were so violent that they almost annihilated themselves, right? You had Aisha, the mother of the faithful, march an army out against Ali, the commander of the faithful, right? And they're killing each other. And so how do you not sit back and say, guys, before we continue this campaign of violence and so on, we need to sit back and decide whether this is really true. And so before we go out killing, let's make sure we have good reasons, and let's check out the information we've been given. Has the Quran been perfectly preserved? Uh-oh, no. Is Muhammad the greatest man ever? Uh-oh, no. And then, I don't know how they don't have that. But yeah, it is, I agree with you. This is pretty much the coolest time in history as far as this goes, because as long as Islam had that ability to keep people insulated, it could just expand and expand and expand until it would be stopped by, for one reason or another. But now it's crumbling from the inside. And I don't know. It's just cool to be in this, to be part of this, right? I mean, future generations look back at this and say, hey, that's when that fell. And these are the people on the internet during this time bringing this information to people. So it's, cool times.
Yeah, that's definitely very cool. Yeah.
All right, you want to take a couple questions before we sign off?
Yeah, sure, certainly.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Harris here, this would be a good time to post any questions. I had darn it, there were some questions earlier about stuff that was going on in Pakistan. Did you follow the story of I think it was a young Christian girl who was
Asia Bibi. Asia.
No, not the blasphemy case. I mean apparently there was people just took her and forced it, did a forced marriage.
Yeah. Oh, that's just according to the study of Human Rights Watch and Hindu Council of Pakistan, and it's been published in Dawn, which is the largest circulating English newspaper of Pakistan, Tribune, Pakistan. All these newspapers have confirmed that roughly around about 1,000 girls a year from Hindu and Christian backgrounds are kidnapped, married off against their wishes. Oh, obviously, if it's under 18, it's statutory rape, or even under 16. But these girls are 14, 13, 14. And girls, always girls, kidnapped, forced into Islam, and then they put up photos on social media, happy photos where they just with the new groom who's 30, 40 years old and this 14-year-old girl, and they're just happily ever after. They put these up on social media. So the 1,000 girls a year get kidnapped every year. That happens every year, and that's just one number. Huma, I think it was Huma's story. There was Huma. That's one Christian girl. I think that happened in Lahore. There's another one, Myra. That story was featured on Forbes. Unfortunately, that keeps happening. Courts are aware of that, but there's no legal framework. So I'll give you a bit of rundown. In 2017, Pakistan's only secularist kind of party. It's not secular, but they pretend to be. But they're better than the religious parties. They tried to pass a law against forced conversion back in 2017, but guess who opposed it? The clerics. They turned up. They just turned up in huge numbers, and they said you're discouraging people from converting to Islam. But so the government backed down. That was in 2017. And somebody should ask. By the way, this is how hypocrite these societies are. If you leave Islam, you're allowed to, but you have to appear in a court. But if you from any other religion you come to Islam, you don't have to go to the court. You can just sign a piece of paper, or not even that. You can just say that I've converted to Islam. That's it. So that's the hypocrisy. So people were saying, hang on, why are you why this double standard? And on the other hand, we're getting these 13, 14-year-old girls getting kidnapped all the time, and they're converting to Islam. And the parents are protesting in front of minister's house and in front of courthouses, and nothing's happening. So anyways, they tried in 2017, but good news is they just tried it. They tabled the bill, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And I think they're just trying to just silently pass it before it just becomes a huge issue. So we're hopeful that this time it might get the bill might get passed.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we have a bunch of questions here. I did want to point out, Eric here says, the Charlie Hebdo trial began yesterday. What's your take about that? I've heard it would be recorded, which is a rare thing for the French judicial system. Last time it happened was a trial to a Nazi. So yeah, I actually, right before we went live, I recorded a video about that. I'm probably going to post a few more. So one was just a general sort of introduction to the topic of this trial coming up. Tomorrow I'll probably post an interesting poll which shows that back in, I think, 2006, the poll was done in France about, whether people thought it was okay to post cartoons of Mohammed, and it was like 20-some%. Most people thought it was just a horrible idea. Whereas after the Charlie Hebdo massacre, I think it was about 50%. So I have to go back and get the exact numbers, but basically far more people now think it's okay to post cartoons of Muhammad than back in the early 2000s, specifically because of the violent outbursts. And so, yeah. And so the point here is, it's like Mohammed Hijab. He keeps, I want to stop this, and you just end up encouraging it and making the same dumb mistake. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing, right? I mean, every civilization fights back. I mean, there's only so many punches they're going to take. This Charlie Hebdo happened. And you're right. I would have thought the same thing, that people would have said, why are you provoking Charlie Hebdo? Why are you provoking a group of people? Well, why? But then when they react that way, then you say, okay, you know what? Do it again. Go for it. And now after 5 years, they just republished the same cartoons. And guess what's happening? And what was trending in Pakistan yesterday? Charlie Hebdo, shame on you. And at the same time, and I got tired of tweeting. I got tired of telling some of these celebrity accounts. I was like, not a single word on the trial that is happening and how many people were killed by these people over a cartoon, murdered. And my good friend Vidu Vids, fellow YouTuber from England, he actually became an ex-Muslim after that. When he saw, he was a Muslim at the time when Charlie Hebdo published the cartoons, and he's told this story numerous times that. But then he heard, when he spoke with his own fellow Muslims in schools and friends and family and all that, he said every time I asked these people, my seemingly otherwise humane, normal, wonderful Muslims, every time I asked them about why did they get killed, what do you think about this murder, they were like, yeah, it's wrong, but, and he said he had the biggest problem with the word but. You just cannot justify murder. Sure, there's so many other ways of protesting. Say that, this is horrible, we don't support that, make a petition, or hold a candlelight vigil or whatever. And that way, more French would have been like, we shouldn't do that to our fellow Muslim community members. But no, we're going to go and start stabbing people. And when you do that, of course, as you said, like you're in minority, these people, and they're going to fight back. And France is, I think, taking the lead. There was a news story a couple of days ago where French Interior Minister said that we're going to deport the whole Muslim family because they shaved the head of a 17-year-old daughter because she was dating a Christian guy. And when these kind of things happen, sure, it's just a one-off isolated incident. But my point, I know, and every Muslim who's listening to me knows how seriously they take this honor thing. 100 families, if they would not have shaven her head off, they would have disowned her. 90 out of 100 would have done that. So not shaving, disowning her, at least disowning, and beating, slapping, all that thing would have happened. So we know that. On the other hand, 100 Christian families, I think maybe five of them would have objected to marrying a brown guy or a black guy or a Muslim guy or whatnot. And that might have been also from Westboro Baptist Church. So majority of people would not have acted that way. So these are the things, these telltale signs are so clear in front of the world. And they did it well for a little bit of time. Post 9/11, they ended up spreading their narrative that, oh, look, America came and bombed us and you're the victims, we've got nothing to do. So that idea of Islamophobia kind of worked for a little bit, but it's backfiring on them. On them now.
Yeah, me and AP the other day were talking about how different it is with Islamophobia now, in that 10 years ago, you're saying, hey, Islam calls for terrorism and it's, the execution of apostates and allows sex with prepubescent girls. And then the response was, no, Islam doesn't teach any of that. You're just an Islamophobe. And that's why you're being irrational and saying all these false things. Whereas now it's, yes, of course, we're going to kill you. And of course, you can have sex with 9-year-old girls. Of course, all these things. But you're an Islamophobe if you resist it. And so it's like, it's just a completely different scenario now.
Lies don't survive, David. Lies like these, as I said, the biggest strengths of Islam are turning it into biggest weaknesses. And we're going to see that more and more people. The amount of people like you who've been doing this for such a long period of time, where you just give up a reference. And so many people, ordinary people, now they memorize the references. Not only they just say, "Hey, Muhammad had Muhammad has so and so sex slave," that they would give a reference. They would say Quran 4:24 says that. Mm-hmm. So that's just quite amazing. And 10 years ago, no one would have known any of this.
Yeah, the times are changing. The apostate prophet has been cracking me up with all of the tons of super chats he's been sending, and I'm thinking, I keep forgetting, because I'm like, where's he getting all this money from? And then I'm like, oh, Mohammed Hijab. so AP has all these more than 100 new patrons, and so he's probably going to just spend this month going around. And I'm thinking that because that's what I've been planning too. I've been planning on getting video of me just dropping super chats on everyone's channel with, hey, this is from Mohammed Hijab. This is from Mohammed Hijab. Salt Dauget, and I'm bringing this up because there were several questions that were similar to this. Harris, what was the final straw that made you realize Islam was false? So there are several questions along these lines of kind of what was the biggest thing, because leaving Islam is usually a kind of process. And so what was the straw that?
I actually thought about it afterwards when I had left, when I realized I am an atheist. It's like I didn't. Most people I've spoken with, they can't put a date to it. Mm-hmm. So I can't put a date to it either. There were all these things happening simultaneously. My friend Vidu, the one I just spoke about, the one who doubted after Charlie Hebdo, that guy actually has a date written down. He said, that is the day when I became an ex-Muslim. And that thing had happened, about the Charlie Hebdo thing had happened, and I think that was one of the biggest things that happened. And somebody told him, hey, bro, you're talking like Richard Dawkins, you're an atheist. And then he said, maybe I am an atheist. Yes, I am an atheist. That's how he realized. I can't put a date to it. When I wrote my book afterwards, and I rewinded as far back as I could go, and as I said, that was one of the few crucial points in my life. And I accidentally read that article where this guy was critiquing Richard Dawkins. And then that started a journey. And then I'm looking into all these other arguments every day. I'm consuming that. And then I'm reading those books. But to me, I think the biggest problem, so when I wrote my book down, I pointed out three things. First of all, there's no evidence for any God. There's just no evidence. If we just talk about scientifically and philosophically, there's no empirical evidence, or even, in my opinion, no rational argument for any God either. But okay, if we ignore that aside, the second part, the moral lessons that we get from Islam are horrible. That no sane person can say, oh, there is some morality in that. I mean, the creator of billions of galaxies could not have said, just go to the neighboring village and kill their men and take their women as sex slaves. That owning sex slaves themselves. That has resonated with me for a very long period of time, because I'm a man. It should not hurt me as much as it should appeal to some females, because you can just imagine. But then obviously as men, we also have a different view of looking at it. Imagine someone come. I give this hypothetical to all the new Muslims who come to my show and they challenge me. I said, just imagine Indian forces come to your village. They kill all of your men and take your wives as slaves, and they can do whatever they want with them. How would you feel? That's literally exactly what Quran allows you. The Quran allows that. There's no two ways about it. And people like Shabir Ali made a video. There's no denying in that.
By the way, that was the first thing I recall bothered Nabil, was going through what Sahih al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and Sunan Abu Dawud said about the historical background of Surah 4, verse 24. We talked about Aisha, Muhammad and Aisha and stuff. He didn't really have a terrible problem with that. He justified it, and but he didn't tell me. He didn't tell me until later. He didn't tell me until after he became a Muslim. That, hey, when I was kind of given weak responses to that 424 stuff, he said it was tearing me up. It was tearing me up inside. I was just thinking, hey, what if my mother and my sister, who are, from a, what's considered a heretical sect of Islam, what if they conquer? What would they do? And if they weren't Muslims, then what would they be allowed to do to?
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's one thing that's bothered me, but I wouldn't say that's all of it. What was caused me, because obviously I learned Islam, a lot of it, after I was watching Dawkins and I was reading these books. The sex slavery, for example, sun and the moon have an orbit, and then the third point. Well, first was no evidence for God, second moral argument, and the scientific blunders in the Quran. I mean, sun and the moon have an orbit. There are 11 verses that say that. Day and night, and sun and moon have an orbit. I mean, and these people, when I tried to find the counter arguments and justifications of that, all I saw was these red herrings. That people just making things up. Incredible amount of mental gymnastics. And I say that if mental gymnastics was a sport in Olympics, Muslims would have won gold medals every time. The amount, and I said, why do you have to do this? It's a lot simpler to say, yeah, maybe it is nonsense. Maybe somebody did make it up 1,400 years ago. The scientific mistakes are hilarious. I've written all of that in my book in detail. I think that's one of the biggest chapter. And my other chapter about morality point, there's an argument of morality, but it's specific to Islam. I only discuss the life of character of Muhammad because he's the best guide for Muslims to follow.
He is.
And I've just listed the number of women he had in his lives, and that alone should just make everyone's skin crawl. That how could you? The story of Safiya, Rihanna, and Zainab, and there's just far too many.
Or not even the number of women he would have in his life. The number of women he would sometimes have in one night. Pretty
yeah, that's one hadith. I mean, it's embarrassing. And he had the strength of 40 men or something.
Yeah, sexual strength.
Yeah. I mean, Viagra, before Viagra was cool, huh?
Yeah, it was. It is amazing because that's also in their view of heaven. Like, what are we going to do with all these houris? And you have these passages about Allah blessing them with eternal erections, miraculous erections, so that their penises never go limp. And it's like, wait a minute. So Muhammad is like a kind of an example of what to look forward to in his supercharged miraculous sex drive. And so. Yeah, on the issue of scientific miracles, that in my mind it's parallel to the issue of like perfect preservation. If all along you had been saying that Allah's giving revelations according to the understanding of the people at the time, and this isn't meant to be a scientific textbook or something like that, that would be one thing. But when you build the confidence in your religion upon perfect preservation, right down to the dot, right down to the letter, and miraculous scientific perfect insights that are only being verified today, they keep setting the bar so high that 5 minutes of research just brings everything crashing.
That argument is so weak. Argument is so weak it doesn't work. First of all, if they say that God was only speaking with the desert dwellers at the time, then the point is, why is he talking about it in the first place? And the second point is, it means that the book is not eternal and for all times and all people. So it was only for the group of people. And as I said, why was he talking about it at all, that he created earth and heaven in 6 days? Oh, no, it wasn't 6 days as in our days. Okay, then what days is he talking about? Is he talking about Martian days, or is he talking about Jupiter, Juno days, or what is he talking about? Why would he be talking about some other days? So it just doesn't work, and it becomes very clear to any person, even if he's a believer at that time, it's very easy to shake their faith just a little bit. And you're right. When you shake them a little bit, some butthurt people come to my comment and they say, Harris, after watching your videos, my iman, my faith has strengthened tenfold. I'm like, yeah, all right, bro. You're just saying that because you're trying to reassert that your faith is intact. You're trying to reassert that. You're telling yourself, no, I still have faith, but you don't.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning earlier about this sort of compensating this. All right, I didn't know this before, and this is bothering me. Therefore, let me compensate by you've made me a much stronger Muslim. Here's a related. Wasn't going to post this one, but since you were talking about this, I guess to get your views, we are getting questions like this. Techno guy, well, oh no, actually he directed this towards me, I think. But since you're here, how will you deal with a Muslim who says sex slavery and pedophilia is perfectly moral? And maybe the reason for this is we just had a Muslim on with us, Dr. Shuaib Syed, who's I think he's like cousins or something with Zakir Naik, but he's a popular Muslim apologist in India. But he said we were going through the issue of sex captives and temporary marriage, mutta, and so on, and he was just saying. So we would say, look, that's prostitution. That's prostitution. You're hiring a woman, you're giving her money, and you're sleeping with her. That's prostitution. He would just say, if Allah says it's okay, then it's okay. It's not even prostitution. Wait a minute. You're giving her money for sex. You're giving her money for sex. That's prostitution. He would say it's not prostitution. It's because Allah says it's okay. But in every instance it would be, well, if Allah allows that, then it's just not immoral. So if you had a Muslim, let's say Ali Dawah, if Ali Dawah was saying, hey, if a 9-year-old girl. Now, I don't believe Aisha had reached puberty, according to the Muslim sources. But even going with their view, if someone said, hey, having sex, a 50-some-year-old man having sex with a 9-year-old girl is not immoral because Allah says it's fine, how would you respond there?
Most of them actually, those who do become aware of sex slavery, they do defend it. So all these scholars defend it. So let's get it. So what they do is they obviously go through these mental gymnastics and they tell you, what were we meant to do with these women? Their husbands had been killed in the war. I'm like, okay, maybe give them a house and shelter, but why are you, taking your own advantage out of it? And then I say, so the easiest thing I tell them, so according to your worldview, that's perfectly fine, especially when I'm engaging with Pakistanis and all that, because they're making these excuses. I say, okay, so when United States went to Afghanistan, just imagine when they're killing Taliban, they're taking their women as the slaves. Would you be okay with that? I think when we put that in, because on the other hand, they're just telling America, the evil country. One of the videos actually did go viral. I spoke with this guy who was saying 9/11 was an inside job or whatever. I don't know if you've seen that video, but that is a typical Pakistani mind. And so, I was acting like a Yank there. I was like, America is great. But anyway, so when you actually put that into perspective, that, okay, so these white Americans, these evil infidels, when they come to your country, because, now there's a war, forget about who's just and who's not just, because other side always thinks that the other side is unjust. So now they're killing Taliban and they're taking their women. How would you feel? When you speak with that, people do respond to that. I have never heard of a decent comeback from anyone else. With more seasoned mental gymnasts, like the actual scholars, they would make all types of excuses. You leave them as they are. They know that's the worldview. I'll tell you a funny thing. If someone is so rigid in their stance, I had a friend still is kind of a friend. Sunni Muslim, Shias don't have the problem, as you said, Muttas, they can do the Mutta. Sunnis have that problem. They're like, so one day this friend of mine comes to me, and this is Harris. He's married. Harris, if I go to a brothel and hire a prostitute and just tell her verbally at the start, because I'm paying her, she would be like, yeah, sure. If I just tell her at the start that you are my captive, you are my right-hand possessor. so if I do that, and then, I do my business, half an hour, whatever I booked her, however long I booked her for, I do my business, and then I move out. That would be halal, I think, Harris. What do you reckon? I said, what? It kind of is halal because, yes, you've said it that you're right-hand possessed, and because you're paying her, she would say, yeah, sure, man, whatever. All right. It's halal. So what is the difference? And you're right, all these things, and there's so many hadiths after hadiths after hadith that show us that these women were treated like objects, like sex slave, all right-hand possessed, now I've had you for 1 year, 6 months, or however long I wanted, and then I've sold you to someone else. I think the only fiqh is that if she gives birth, then you can't sell her just by herself. I think that's the only thing. But there's no dilemma about selling them, treating them women. So that is kind of a prostitution as well in a sense. So I think the only thing we can do is just build a human connection. Just tell them that if United States does that, kill the bad guy, take their women. But on the other hand, what America does is like, try to rehabilitate, try to build infrastructure there. That's the level how far humanity has gone. But the book that they're dealing with 1400 years ago, that's a simple solution. Take their women and you use them for your own sexual pleasure. And not only just that, they actually say, we're actually doing women the service. Those women who are now widowed, whose husbands you've just killed, what are they gonna do?
Yep, I've seen that.
Of course, they would also crave a man. So we're just giving them some sexual services. I mean, that's the level of these people. And you just have to believe in humanity at those levels. You just have to think that maybe give these analogies, draw this metaphor, draw the real life comparison. If it appeals to them, fair enough. If it doesn't, then let them be. I reckon it does. I reckon it works on them at some point.
Yeah. So I guess it would just be. So I guess your approach here would just be to keep bringing up more and more issues until one of them sticks, right? Where they go, nope, that is wrong. Oh yeah. Here's an interesting one from Vince Clortho, and it's getting late, so we'll just take another one or two. But Vince Clortho says, Act 17 apologetics and Harris. What would be your estimate for when apostasy will be effectively legally recognized and generally accepted across the nominally Islamic world?
Well, I reckon apostasy will be generally accepted a lot sooner than it will be legally changed. Now, the one success story just, I think, a couple of months ago, Sudan abolished the law against apostasy in Sudan, South Sudan. It was, or I don't know. Oh no, maybe Somalia. Well, anyway, Sudan. I think it was Sudan. I think it was Sudan. So out of 12 countries now, we're down to 11 countries where apostasy is punishable by death, and the 12th country being my country, Pakistan, which is blasphemy. So I reckon legally governments are too scared. Legally, they're not going to do it. These kind of laws are triggered by movements, by people, and on surface, as you said, Islam looks like this big gorilla at this point, that I'm strong and you can't shake it. But we're just eating it from inside. Now, Iran officially, hijab, even something like hijab, is compulsory, and you have to wear a hijab. But we're looking at 50% of the people have left Islam. So you have Islamic Islamic laws in a country which is not even dominated by Islam. According to the same study, only 32% are Shias. Iran is supposed to be the only Shia country in the world, and the population is only 32%. So all the laws are still in place because the regime, the Islamic revolution that came, and the regime that is in place, that is built around that. So it has to come from people. So I think apostasy will become normalized amongst people before the laws getting abolished, and then something like Iran. I mean, it would either change or it would just be overthrown. I would say that would happen in Iran. I mean, I'm sorry, I keep saying that. I'm very happy about it, but if something like this happens in Pakistan, for instance, in the next 10 years, that would be massive. I would say just hold on to your seats. Just get your popcorn, grab your popcorns, because within 10 years, we're going to see some really amazing, interesting things, and apostasy will be normal. Not only just that, and when you are becoming apostate, then Islam is dying on its own.
Yeah, my answer is 5 years. 10
I'll still give it 10.
10 conservatively. Yeah, and not necessarily for every country, but for some of the major ones. I think, yeah, everyone, you can, if we hit the year 2030 and we haven't seen apostasy legally recognized in, let's say, most of these countries where there are still laws against it, you can contact me and say, David, you were wrong. Shame on you. You are not failing. You are not the super planner that we thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I agree. Within 5 years, we'll see some amazing results. But for them, a government to be forced into changing laws, etc., that might take. I don't know. I'm not Mohammed, so I can't tell about the future.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. All the stuff that we're talking about the holes in the narrative coming out, and it's really all this stuff coming out, and then the response from the community is to become angrier and more aggressive, and so this is. You can't keep that up forever, right? That's going to cause more people, like, you're talking about Vidu Vids looking at this going, wait, what are we freaking out over all this stuff and so on. And then it's going to make them have doubt. So I think everything's just going to snowball and avalanche really, really quick, especially if we keep pushing, if we keep pushing as hard as we are. And so to everyone who's saying, David, why aren't you focusing more on Christianity? This is I'm trying to.
You're doing God's work.
Yeah, I want everyone united on breaking those power structures that keep people intellectually oppressed, so that they can't even think about any of this stuff, or they can't even have an honest conversation about it without being accused of blasphemy and so on. Guys, there are tons of preachers in the world. I'm one of them, but there aren't a lot of people focusing on this. There just aren't enough people. When you think about dangerous ideologies, this is something that a lot of people need to focus on. And whether you're Hindu, atheist, agnostic, Christian, Jew, I mean, just think about all those different groups and the impact that Islam is having on them. My goodness. Yeah, so if
I have a question for you.
Sure.
I have a question for you. I mean, obviously you did that 12, 13 years ago. You started roughly the same time when Mariam Namazi showed up. Maybe she might have showed up a little bit earlier. But you and everyone, this ex-Muslim, at that time, obviously you would not have known this term ex-Muslim. But since you're in your journey, you've seen some amazing success stories and amazing this whole movement just basically grown in front of your eyes. Mm-hmm. And obviously your journey is a lot longer. So you've been doing it for 13 years, and now we're just predicting 10 more years or 5 to 10 more years. So this will be a whole career of 20 years or something. And how do you see it that this must be very satisfying for you as well? I mean, people like me, I started in 2017. AP started maybe around the same time. I think I started in 2018. AP started in 2017, and Abdullah Samir and all these other guys are just showing up. There's 5 Urdu-speaking YouTubers now, 3 of them from within Pakistan doing these kind of work. How does that feel? I mean, you being, and you're not even being from a Muslim background. You know?
Yeah, no, it's you can actually go back. I could find 1 or 2 videos very early on where I would say my focus is not on getting Muslims to leave Islam. My focus is on keeping people from converting to Islam. And the reason was, I mean, I just spent 4 years talking to one guy, right? Talking to one guy to get him to leave, to get him to, you know, convince him to leave Islam. And I'm just thinking, that is, man, if that's how hard it is, got to be much easier to keep someone from converting than, you know, getting someone to leave Islam after they're already dug in. So I was focusing on that. But yeah, back then there were ex-Muslims, but man, they were rare. As far as ex-Muslims that you'd ever hear from, people who were ex-Muslims in public, they were rare, right? It was Nabil and a couple others that I would have even been familiar with. Whereas now they're just everywhere. They're everywhere. They have tons of channels, tons of websites. They're all over Twitter, all over Facebook. And so if things changed that rapidly, you know, in 13, 14, 15 years, you know, what happens 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And so, yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome to see this. And back, you know, in 2010, when I decided, hey, I'm going to focus a lot of energy on YouTube, there was almost no one doing this. A lot of Christians thought of me as kind of untouchable, because as we were talking about earlier, you get associated with, you know, oh, you're a right-wing extremist, or you know, you're opposing Islam because you must be a white nationalist or something like that. There's that, and hey, why are you blasting away at this ideology here? And so no one wanted to touch this stuff, and so it was kind of a situation where I'm too much of a jerk towards Islam for Christians to want to have much to do with me. I'm too Christian for atheists to want to have much to do with me. And so it's just, I'm kind of out in no man's land, and it's just me going, nope, I'm going to keep blasting away. I'm going to keep blasting away because I believe this is going to be successful in the long run. And so, yeah, looking back and saying, you know, hearing from all the people who've, you know, just from my channel, but not only from my channel, just from the whole project, because after that, you know, other people started springing up and so on, and now there's this giant thing, and it's only going to keep snowballing. And I'm sure you've seen the clips of people like Bilal Phillips just warning the community about this avalanche of apostasy. The Muslim leaders, they're in trouble right now, because they recognize what's coming. They've got all these people coming to them with their doubts, and you've got people like Yasser Qadi and Shabir Ali, and they saw, hey, the religion's been propped up on these lies, so we kind of need to ease Muslims into the idea that there are differences in these manuscripts. We kind of have to let that out there, because we can't keep building it on lies. And so they both ease it in there. And there's this huge backlash against them. How dare you? You're causing doubt and so on. And so the Muslim community largely responds, no, we've got our myth, and you don't get to shatter our myth. But guys, the comments are already out there. They've already admitted it. And so just looking, and then looking at, you know, Hijab and Ali Dawah and these guys freaking out left and right. And I'm just looking back going, wow, it's finally happening. So, yeah, pretty.
And
awesome.
These are just the guys who are actually in front of you, like Hijab and Ali Dawah. But there was an Eid festival, not this animal slaughtering one, but the one before, 2 months prior to that. There was an Eid festival, obviously in the Muslim world, and one of the guys actually recorded a video. He said, Harris, I've never ever heard these guys crap on atheists ever before. These local clerics. He said he'd never heard of him, and now there's another guy just out of nowhere as well sent me a similar comment as well, and one of the guy actually recorded it, and he said these guys are now actually crapping on. They used to go on about attacking Hinduism or Christianity, but now they're like, whoa, these atheists, people are leaving Islam in huge numbers because these atheists are just attacking our religion with no holds barred kind of a match. And you're right. I mean, Bilal is just one example, but there are so many others who have recognized that this apostasy, forget about going to Christianity or atheist or not, it's just the apostasy. It's your own house. It's crumbling right before your eyes. You're looking at it, and it's like the building is just coming down, and you can't do anything. You go close to it, you might get buried in it yourself. So definitely very interesting times. But and you obviously, as you were saying earlier, that when people look back and they're like, oh yeah, these were the people who did that, you would be right up there at the top because despite the fact, one thing that I really hope that you would have achieved in that one as well. Obviously, you achieved in turning waking up a lot of Muslims. So many ex-Muslims are telling me, "Oh, David would change me." But the other thing that I hope that you have had some sort of success is that these white Christian women, white women who convert to Islam. Islam has a big fetish, as you know, in converting people, and especially the women. Women, why not the women? So. I've had so many women contact me and they say, yeah, and most of the time it's because they convert to Islam because they're in love with some dude, and then he says, oh yeah, you got to convert to Islam, and then they leave, and then they leave them, and then they're like, and then these women are like, oh, okay. At that time, those women struggle. Now that chapter is closed, should they move on, go back to the original life? But people generally don't like to go back. Life is actually moving forward. Mm-hmm. So some of the women actually stay in Islam, even though the reason why they had become Muslim is gone. But then we are also seeing a surge of these women who are actually becoming white ex-Muslims. Mm-hmm. And some of these ex-Muslim women who just say, I'm an ex-Muslim too, and some Muslims are not even taking them seriously. That's how bitter they are. They say, oh, you were never even a Muslim to begin with. You were a Christian and then you converted to Islam. Yeah. But I think the challenge that we have, I've been speaking with one of my patrons, and actually no, he told me not to talk about this, but there's so many stories where people, I hope you have some sort of success in actually preventing women to actually going towards Islam, because I do get a lot of messages now from white women. And you say this about Islam, but my boyfriend is saying this about Islam. And then I say, well, go and ask him this. Go and ask him this, what it says here. And but because at that time they're in love, they want to get married, they just don't listen to me. But then there was one Australian woman who did that, and then 2 years later she just contacted me, and I told her, I said, don't do it. This guy was Pakistani, and she was saying, I'm going to Pakistan, live with him happily ever after over there. I said, don't do it. Don't do it. So, but she's like, she just, I think she never responded to me. And then just last month, I remember she messaged me and she said that she came back to Australia, it didn't work out. And but then she was still defending Islam, but she was saying, I'm still a Muslim, but it's just a journey. But I hope you get those messages too from women about that. And what are you doing about preventing them, since given that you said that was your original goal, to stop people from converting to Islam?
No, I hear tons of messages that are along those lines as well. I usually don't post those, but sometimes I'll make compilation videos just reading out comments from people who've left Islam. Like I said, I usually don't post the messages from people who said, hey, I was about to convert to Islam, and then then I saw this from your videos. But it's kind of a mixed group, because you get messages from people saying, yeah, I was about to convert to Islam, and thank you for what I learned from your videos, but also from people who don't listen. And then I hear from them later. One was me and Sam Shamoun actually sat down with a young woman and a Muslim who was actually getting her to become his second wife. So she had converted based on all this all this information, and she was converting. She had already converted to Islam, but now she was going to be his second wife. So not legally recognized in the United States, but there'd be an Islamic ceremony, and so she actually didn't listen to us. She became his second wife. And then, it was several years later. Hey, you're right.
I told you so.
Well, no, that was actually a cool situation because, there was never any legally binding ceremony. So, they had their Islamic divorce, and she had custody of the kid, and she's a Christian now. But those are the situations. It's like, guys, why are you jumping into this? If we're right, you're going to be in a lot of pain. So you might want to think about this before you jump into this. Also, me and the Apostate Prophet, we've talked about this recently, where we actually want to make videos along the lines of, before you convert to Islam, watch this. and it's basically, good rundown of, hey, if you're converting, if you're about to convert to Islam, watch this specifically for something that, if your friend's about to convert to Islam or your family member's about to convert to Islam, you're going to be looking, what do I, you're going to be scrambling at the last second. Gosh, he's about to go and convert. What do I do? And so we kind of want to have videos. Just sit down with your friend, watch this video. Possibly, he's free to convert if he wants to convert, but try and sit down with him and go through this stuff. And it's going to be, hey, if you're about to convert, you've probably been told this, and this. Let's take a quick look at this. Hey, it's a big decision. At least you could do is spend 10 minutes going through this and go through the evidence. But yep.
There's there's a TV show. It's called Banged Up Abroad. I don't know what it's called in America. There's an American version too. I think Locked Up Abroad is something. So where these people go and they're on a holiday, they're down, their cars are down, they're poor, and they're going through depression or whatnot, and then someone approaches and says, hey, do you want 10 grand? Just make a trip to this South American country and then come back to whatever, and then, I'll give you 10 grand. You're like, why are you doing this just for 10 grand? And then, these people go there and then they get arrested, and then they spend 10 years in prison, and then the whole show is about their journey inside the cell. Same like that with these people. There are two types of converts. The first is obviously, some dude who's just had a very nice friend, and he's angry, he's just going through some other life problems, and he blames the West and he blames Christianity if that's his background. Then he says, okay, I'm going to find a new life. You white folks, you guys do this kind of thing. You went into Kabbalah, and then you go into yogism, and all that kind of crap. But so then they go, okay, Islam became fashion. Mike Tyson and all these guys that become okay. So and then the other type is women who fall in love. With those are the ones I think the hardest one. Now you gave one example. I have one example of the Australian white woman as well, and I was like, yeah, no, but it was just I think her mind was saying, listen to this guy, what he's saying. I even told her, I said, this is like mafia, like the Locked Up Abroad merger. You're going in and there's no way out. Apostasy is punishable by death. Why would anyone go in that? That's like joining the mafia. They say that in mafia movies, like, oh, there's plenty of doors to come in, but no way out. But at that time, they're in love. That time they can't. But these other people, I think those people who go through some sort of circumstances, problems and whatnot, they are probably more likely to listen to or watch those videos. By the way, Muslim scholars are right ahead of you on that. I was watching this on one of the biggest Pakistani cable channels. There was this cleric was sitting on TV, and he was saying, yeah, we have to change our ways. Native apostates should be killed for death. But if someone converts, then we shouldn't kill them, because, again, he had his own strategy in that too. He was saying, because these people, these Islamophobes, are telling white people that if you go in, you won't be able to leave. So therefore, we should make an amendment that if a white person converts to Islam, they can leave Islam. But native apostates, well, they gotta be killed.
It sounds like innovation.
Innovation that is being forced by people like you.
Yeah, same thing with Mohammed Hijab. You can't just say, "Oh, Allah says this," but let me make it more palatable for a modern generation.
Exile. Give them the option of exile.
Yeah. No, I've heard tons of stories, and yes, tried talking to the women who are in love. Very, very, very difficult. difficult to talk to. And what's sad is you know the entire time that it's going to be much more difficult for her, because she's going to marry this guy, and by the time her hormones start to settle and she's actually able to look into this, she actually finds out Islam is false. Well, now you're married and you're in Pakistan and you've got 3 kids, and it's a much more difficult path to get out of Islam than if you just said, this is a pretty big life decision. I need to make sure that this is correct here.
Yeah.
Yep. We have a question here. Yeah, we should be wrapping up. Let's see. Yeah, six. Yeah, we'll be wrapped up in the next 6 minutes. Afif Kaja says, David, you are doing a great job, but I don't think it is fruitful to spend any time with personal squabble, such as with hijab and dawah. We should focus on Islam. Afif, and I'd be interested in Harris's response. Afif, I know we want to say, and we just want to focus on responding to Islamic arguments and so on. Yeah, I would say you have to realize there are people who have massive influence, right, in the Muslim community, and they're going around thumping their chests. And it's very common to think, let's just focus on making sure we have the best arguments here. And if we have the best arguments, we win. Well, not if this other guy has built up such a massive, this other guy builds up such a massive crowd, such a mob, that they can just come and kill you, right? So I'm not talking about hijab here. I'm talking about the principle in general, right?
Yeah.
When you focus, you don't focus on a growing movement, and you focus on, hey, let me just make sure I have the best arguments. Well, if a giant mob that will gladly kill you is forming, then guess what? That they win. They win. They defeat your great, brilliant argument. Right, so you have to pay attention to both. You have to pay attention to having good, correct, strong, powerful arguments. You also have to pay attention to when people are taking things in another direction. As far as hijab is concerned, the moment he said, "I'm going after women," all right, then I'm going after you. And so I'll be going after hijab until he takes down his tweets and apologizes. After that, hey, he can do what he wants. I hope the best for him.
Yeah, it's so funny. Well, I know Afif's point. Actually, he's I know he's a very nice ex-Muslim. He's an American ex-Muslim, I think. I see his point, but the problem is, as you said, David, everything, when you're in public domain, everything has some sort of an impact. It might look personal to you, but the 200,000 people who follow hijab, and there's 500,000 people that follow David Wood, they're watching it. They're learning it, and people pick up these cues. The first thing that I noticed when you went after the Quran, you could have started going after Muhammad Hijab's wife. You could have started cracking jokes about Hijab's wife or Hijab's children. I don't know if he has any or not. You could, you've got far bigger reach than I do. People send me memes. They make memes of my people, who criticize me. That they make derogatory memes about them, and then people say, and I'm like, yeah, I can't do that. So, there's so much. So smarter people, Afif, you notice that actually a lot more can be done. But what is happening here? So David is actually going after hijab, and it's not madness. There's a full-on method behind this. This is a strategy. This is encirclement of a dying army. That Muslims are hating hijab for actually doing this. They don't care. They don't care what's involved. You're abusing apostate's wife, or you're abusing David Wood or his wife or not. They don't care about that. But what they do care about is that the Quran is being desecrated because of hijab. Who's going to back down? We've already seen hijab's backing down a little bit, but then he comes back again because his ego is too big, and it's only a matter of time. And let me make a prediction better than Prophet Muhammad's prediction. Muhammad Hijab will back down.
He's going to back.
He will back down.
I guarantee he's going to back down, and I know he's watching this, and I know that's crushing his pride to think, well, I can't back down now because David Wood said I'm going to back down. Hijab, you're going to back down. Could be now, could be after a lot more pain, but you're going to back down.
There was a sign, as I said, when he made that tweet about, after 2 days after he said Abu Bakr did this, it's okay to go after the wives. He's saying Islam has got nothing to do with it. And then he's apologizing, and he says that I will adhere to the terms and conditions of Sapiens or whatever this whole institute is. Obviously, someone has told him, hey, bro, if you ever do something like this again, we're not. So he's under the pump. And now, if he's a representative, and I know that these Muslim apologetic groups, they think that hijab has a lot to offer. He's obviously smart. He can speak fluently. He's good with that. So they see something in him. But obviously his anger issues, his emotional discharges, these things are getting him in trouble. And his own crowd is turning against him. That, dude, this white Islamophobe is desecrating our holy book because of you. Just please don't do it. And you're right. People do think about, okay, let's find a solution. And it's not personal. I mean, there's nothing to lose for you. So I mean, I don't think it's sensible for you. I mean, I personally haven't desecrated the Quran myself because I want to be able to engage with Pakistani clerics. I want to be able to reach out to masses of Pakistani population. Which I know otherwise they would just not be interested in engaging in me. Like for example, Mufti Abu Layth I speak with. I've had a conversation with him, but these personal differences are even actually good for the movement because they propel you into arguments and they propel you forward. With Mufti Abu Layth, I don't even feel like disagreeing with him. I'm like, yeah, all right. We don't even argue. Sometimes I send him messages about certain things. What's your opinion and this and that? And then I just get his view, but I don't argue with him. There's some other people that I've spoken with. I don't even feel like arguing with them anymore. But they see the importance of my work. I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but they see that what we're doing, and then like any reaction, you put out something, half the people are going to believe in it, the other half are not going to believe in it. But that's a level playing field we're creating, and those kind of personal squabbles, I think they're useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree completely. And guys, I don't. But most people are cheering it on, right? They want to see it. They want to see someone who's really.
It's entertainment.
Yeah, it is. It's and I saw it instantly. I even mentioned it in a video. If you have a proud man here, you defeat this proud man by pitting him against something that he loves, where he has to. You wait for him to put himself in a position where you can make him have to choose. I have to choose this, which will crush my pride, or I have to choose my pride, which will result in bad things for this. And then you see what happened. Hey, Mohammed Hijab, you're going to desecrate your Quran unless you back down. So it's my pride or my religion. What's more important? So far, it's been his pride. But yeah, it is. I don't know. I think it's.
And people see that. And people see that other Muslims are seeing that he's putting his pride, which means he doesn't care about the Quran. He doesn't care about the honor of the Prophet. He doesn't care about the sentiments of Muslims. He doesn't care about that. He's trying to use that, okay, I will use that, oh, look, Islamophobes. But nah, man, it's not that simple. It doesn't work that way. People are seeing that you're being provoked by him, and he's the one. He can save countless lives of the Qurans by simply taking down his tweets, but he wouldn't because, as you said, his pride is bigger than him.
Yeah, and it's the situation is, I mean, it's interesting because I mean that's a command, right? Surah 6 verse 108. Hey, if they're going to heap abuse on your religion, on your God, you stop the insulting. It would be different if we said, hey, I'm going to desecrate the Quran unless you stop praying. Well, you can't, you're not going to stop praying. The idea is something that's non-essential. It's non-essential. You don't have to be insulting these other people. But so if you're doing something non-essential and that non-essential thing is going to cause people to heap abuse on Allah or on your religion, you stop what you're doing. And so the Quran actually gives us an ability to order people to do something. But I mean, notice that the early Muslims were, and including Muhammad, were in this exact same position. They were insulting the gods and goddesses and the idols of the pagans. They repeatedly tried to get Muhammad to stop. Muhammad wouldn't stop. They tried to negotiate. That didn't work. Finally, it got to the point where they said, you stop or we're going to insult Allah. And then, what do we do? Do we back down from these guys? Do we back down from them? Do we start obeying them because they're threatening to insult Allah? And Allah says, yes, you do. You back down right now. You stop insulting that. You do what they're telling you to do because that's how important your religion, the honor of Allah is supposed to be to you. That's how important it is. Back down. Don't care if it hurts your pride. And it's just amazing. You've got Mohammed Hijab reading the same Quran and saying, yes, Muhammad himself back down from insulting these guys when he was being ordered. Muhammad himself was humble enough to say, I'm choosing my religion over my pride. And yet Hijab is just greater. He's greater.
There's a Sahih hadith as well that Muhammad said that do not curse the gods of others so they do not curse your gods.
Yep.
There's a Sahih Hadith as well. So, yeah, I mean, hijab. People see that. People see that, and that's again is working for you, not for hijab. You don't have to. You know the worst thing. You know the helplessness that they have. Hijab, as arrogant as a malevolent bully he is, he inside he's like, man, I wish I could burn the Bible. And even if he could, it wouldn't hurt you. But again, we know humans react that way. Especially people like Hijab himself. They're like, okay, I want to get even with you. But he can't because, other Muslims would not approve of that either. It's just this helplessness. So you just grab your popcorns and watch it. This is entertainment. This is free entertainment, guys.
This is, my goodness. I mean, if I were Hijab and I were thinking clearly for 5 seconds, I would say, yes, it's going to hurt to take down all these tweets and apologize to these women right now. It's going to hurt because, David's been ordering me. It's going to hurt, but not nearly as bad as it's going to hurt, 3-4 weeks from now when it's been normalized for people to, well, I'm going to go into all my plans, but it's going to be pretty bad. All right.
Look, it's very quickly. It's very obvious that it is becoming normalized, but not only just that. The point is that Muslims are losing interest in trying to protect their book. Of course, that's what we say, right? We say we need to normalize dissent and we need to normalize blasphemy. But you're enabling someone like David Wood with his reach, and obviously your reach is getting amplified as well because of this drama. More and more Muslims are going to be like, yeah, okay, these people do this every day. So before you know it, even Muslims won't be outraged over this. So they wouldn't care. So, thank you very much, Hijab. I think that's a long-term good benefit out of this whole thing is that Hijab has enabled us, is that people are just not going to care. They become desensitized to it.
Yeah, and that's what's going to happen unless they really just stop trying to thug out and start trying to negotiate some terms and learn how to deal with some people in a really nice way very quickly. That's where this is headed. But one other thing that's going to come out of this is, again, eventually when hijab is forced, not by me, he will either be forced by his own decision or he will be forced by the Muslim community to back down. When that eventually happens, if he makes this take a long time, I'm going to make sure everyone knows. You see, notice, here's the most arrogant, most proud man in the entire world, and you're able to control his behavior when he starts insulting and heaping abuse on women. So take note. Again, you can't say, hey, stop praying or stop believing in Allah or stop doing this or stop doing that. If someone's heaping abuse on you, if someone's insulting, you can actually order a Muslim to stop and make him stop using this methodology that we find in the Muslim sources. And guys, Muslims, hijab, Ali Dawah, trust me, you don't want that method becoming popularized, but I will popularize it if you don't stop. All right, so we have to take off now, but one final question, just because tons of people, probably most of my viewers are Christians, so lots of people were asking questions along the lines of Christianity, things like that. So I'd be kind of they're going to be mad if I don't at least ask one question here. So Harris, do you oppose Christianity? I picked this one because it's interesting because I'm thinking about different kinds of ex-Muslims. So it says, Harris, do you oppose Christianity? What would be your point of view on the topic? And so I think the idea here is you've got a spectrum, right? So among atheist ex-Muslims, there's kind of a spectrum. And sort of on one end, you've got like the apostate prophet who says, I don't care. I don't care what people believe. I don't care about Christianity. I don't care about, I just do not want Islam taking over. That's it. That's the one thing that I'm opposed to. I don't care much else. And then kind of at the other end, you have, no, all religion is just equally bad, or maybe Islam is slightly worse, but religion in general, horrible. We've got to basically convert the world to atheism. So if that's the spectrum, kind of where on that, where on that would you be?
I think I've got that. Yeah, I got that. I think Christopher Hitchens summed it up very nicely. He said if he was in the 30s, if he was living in the 1930s, then he would have been opposing Christianity more than Islam, because just of his alignment with, I know there's different opinions on that too, but just from his point of view, and let's assume he was right, that it's alliance with Nazi Germany. Then he would have been. So it's all based on your situations. I mean, in our lifetime, we know Islam is the biggest demon that needs to be put back in the bottle. Islam needs to be tamed. But again, if I was living in a different time where, let's just say, Christianity was behaving as badly as Islam, then I would have been speaking against that. So in my case, I'm a very strong libertarian in that sense. I believe that people have a right to believe in whatever they want to believe in, even Muslims. I don't care. I don't care what they believe in. The problem is, unfortunately, when personal beliefs become the domain of the public, when, for example, countries like Pakistan, we've seen that, where every aspect of your legal jurisprudence is inspired by Islam. And then what happens? Then people start acting like thugs. Christians don't behave that way. If they started behaving that way, if Western Baptist Church, Westboro Baptist Church, if they were the face of Christianity, yes, I'd be crapping on Christianity too. But to me, Christianity, my mother goes to this church every now and then just because she found some friend. I mean, she's a Muslim, but she was this lady was telling her about Jesus, and my mother was telling her about Mohammed, and my mum said, "Oh, okay, like she was saying really good things about Jesus." But that was it. There was no imposition that you should have this holy water. So anyway, and then my mum was saying that our Muslims don't act that way. Our Muslims go in any room they go in as if they own the joint and they have the truth on their side, and we're gonna try to convert you. Christians don't have that anymore, I would say, at least. So in this society, I mean, I don't oppose Christianity. I would say I don't even oppose Islam in that sense either. My main motive is get Islam out of public life. Do you want to believe in Muhammad's flying donkey or whatever? Believe it in private. Do you want to pray 5 or 6 times a day? I don't care. I really don't care. But my problem is because we know and we have evidence. We have tons of evidence. These Muslim countries where you kill apostates legally, where you kill apostates or you lynch them in a mob. We have these problems. We can see that we have evidence that it gets out of control. You need to tame it. And when Islam becomes, but I think Islam is a different demon altogether. It is either a dominant, it would live dominantly, or it would die out. There's no middle ground for it like there is for Christianity. Christianity has found a way to survive in the hearts of believers and whatnot, but it doesn't impose itself on you. And all the Western countries, all the Christian countries are secular countries. Why is Islam not like that? There's only one example, Turkey, and that seems like it's going back as well.
It's going
so
back.
Islam either dominates or it dies out. So I think and I don't care about whether it dies out or not. As I said, I don't care. If it dies out, fine. But if otherwise, you can become like Christianity. Don't impose yourself on states. Don't make laws around it. I don't care.
All right, and apart from that, I'm getting requests to eat the Quran. Not going to eat the Quran in this video, but you stay tuned because I will be eating the Quran again very soon. I will be taking unless Mohammed Hijab changes his mind, but I'll have an entire live stream where I take requests from viewers on which verses to eat, and we'll discuss why those verses are being consumed with beer.
How do you digest so much crap? I've heard of junk food, but you're taking it to a whole new level.
Yep, you got to do it. Sometimes you got to do it. But nope, once you get a taste for the Quran, you start wanting it. You start wanting to chew it up more, much more so than reading it. All right, thanks to Harris Sultan, and again, the link to his YouTube channel is in the description box, and the link to his book on Amazon also in the description box. And
thank you very much for having me. And by the way, there are 2 channels. I think obviously if the audience is mostly Western, then obviously just go to my English channel, which is Harris Sultan. But if you are from India or Pakistan, you do understand Urdu and Hindi, please go to my Pakistani Mulhid channel. That's very interesting. As I said earlier, we have had 2.5 million views. There are celebrities talking about me under their breath. That people have without mentioning me by name. That's the double-edged sword for them. If they mention Harris Sultan,
then they go to your site.
Then they go to my site. Yeah. But they can't ignore me because their fans are saying, look at this apostate. He's just blaspheming so openly. So they have to say something. So this is a very exciting time, and so do check out that channel as well.
Right, and can they find the link to that from your English channel?
Yeah. You can find the channel from my featured channels. They're all there. Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you have those links. Thanks for watching, and catch you all next time.
Thank you. Ciao.